Hey now, it's your boy, PSA Mitch. And Haryan isn't here right now because he's a late ginger idiot.
Oh,
Does that work? I can't do his voice very well.
I was happy with that. You know, I wanted the northern inflection.
Oh, you didn't want me to do an impression? Oh.
No, I like the blend. I like that sort of wonderful chaotic blend. It's all good. We'll get on with the. It was going to be that, or hello, I'm the horror critic. I get traumatized by it
Welcome
by
to the
you,
show.
so you don't have to. You know,
I
that
can do,
kind of
I
crap.
can do that crime guy if you want.
Oh yeah, do it.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the show. Welcome back. Today's video is about The Lodger. Oh. See, it turns into Phil Mitchell the more I
was going to say, that went a bit Ray Winston, but I was here
I do that on purpose because that's how I imagine him.
I think that only got better. Well, folks, you may have noticed we don't actually have Haryan or that crime guy here. One is away for confirmed reasons, and the other one, anything could have happened.
Maybe the Ripper got him.
The Avenger got him, clearly.
Well, that's one theory. I've got to break it to you. Haryan's dead. He's locked in my basement.
Oof.
Yes.
Are you the Avenger?
Oh, that was some weird iconography, wasn't it? That was weird. The triangle thing?
Yeah. A bit Zodiac before Zodiac.
I mean, Zodiac, the symbolism of the triangle in the decades to follow gets very interesting, but this is obviously just weird. Is this an F for Haryan? Absolutely. F. Well deserved.
I'm just saying, I love being called based waifu. I will take that.
Who's gone with based waifu? Oh, BK, we are going to get you on one time. I know you don't like horror, but that just makes it even better, man. That just makes it even better. All right. Well, folks, this is Double Feature Horror Show episode 30. We are 30 shows in now. This is you think we'd be good at it. But we got a super special one here tonight. We have got Alfred Hitchcock's The Lodger.
Can't even say my name properly.
This is our first film in the Ripper arc. It is our first full black and white movie, and it's our first silent movie. We did kind of cover a black and white movie when we talked about the 1956 Invasion of the Body Snatchers way back in Double Feature Horror Show number 2, for anyone who's been counting. But, we didn't look at it in depth, so this is going to be our first black and white, our first silent. It's going to be an odd one, because I figure if we're going to do the Jack the Ripper in horror, we have to start here. I mean, this has to be the first film about him. It's based on the first book about the Ripper murders. And I have a minor dilemma in that after this, we're going to be jumping way ahead into the year 2000. So I might have to be a little sneaky and get in an extra stream just to give you one of those sort of 1960s, 1970s, not particularly faithful or respectful Ripper movies, just to give you an idea of how it was handled when things were a bit laxer and you had an X certificate to play with. And speaking of certifications, I hope you forgive me, chat. I hope you're not too annoyed. I'm actually going to bump our topic this week. We are not going to do the third part of BBFC history. No. We're going to leave it for a bit later because, frankly, there's a lot to cover here. And I thought, actually, if we're going to talk about Jack the Ripper...
He's here.
Yeah, if we're going to do Jack the Ripper, we should actually cover the events and give people an overview of what we're talking about. Anyway, now that the whole team is assembled, the Avengers are assembled.
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
Have you anything to say for yourself, Haryan?
Yeah, I thought it was. This thing we've done for like half a year. I thought it started half an hour later than we've ever started it before, because I'm an idiot.
Mind you, I nearly forgot, but I still watched The Lodger.
Yeah, I watched The Lodger. I always find time for the film. I just forget when we start talking about it sometimes.
In fairness, we usually don't start talking about the film until about 8:40, because
True.
The topic is never 20 minutes. But luckily, the 3-minute summary is always 3 minutes. So we balance out our punctuality.
That's true.
No comment.
Well, we might as well quickly go over who's here. Hey, Waifu. How you doing?
I'm not too bad. I can't remember the last time I saw you. Oh, was it 5 minutes ago? Trying to get my laptop set up.
It's about that. Well, you know your Ripper lore a bit, and you were watching this with me last night. And we thought, well, this will be a good one.
Yeah, I
Good time.
have quite a weird macabre. It's not really weird. Everyone has a macabre interest in true crime these days. But I'm in our home office. I'm always the one screaming at weird details in really gory podcasts. So Jack the Ripper is the OG. So that's why I'm on tonight.
Oh,
The
pretty
original
much.
gangster.
Pretty much. And Mitch, last time you were on, Waifu was on. It's a bit of a coincidence. Don't you
House of
get
the Devil.
suspicious?
Oh.
Yes.
But I like this film.
I'm glad.
I've already seen it though, so I knew that I was going to like it.
Well, I thought I'd chase you down because when you said you've been the person who's been keenest to cover some silent films, so I thought, all right, lovely.
Yeah, I'm well into that kind of stuff, and I may or may not have certain crushes on certain silent film actresses, like Lillian Gish or Clara Bow. But that's besides the point. It's all about the art, obviously.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna have to Google, aren't I?
Who those names are?
Oh, Clara
Yes.
Bow is beautiful.
Oh, the It Girl, the original It Girl.
All right, hang on. I'm gonna Google her for later.
Lillian Gish was in a lot of D.W. Griffith stuff, and she acted all the way through till her death in the 90s. Yeah.
Oh,
She was 100,
To be
I think.
fair, Ivan Novello, I had no idea. Absolutely beautiful man. I've got a bit of a crush now.
oh
He
my
was
gosh!
not into the ladies, unfortunately.
Something about him.
Just
made
makes
me
it
think
better,
that.
really.
I've
had
heard his
that
voice.
suspicion.
Have you heard his voice?
No, but I know he was a fantastically popular singer of the era.
Yeah. He's named the award is named after him,
Indeed.
and he's Welsh, which will make Owain very happy. There's Clara Bow.
Clara Bow, amazing
Wow.
eyes.
They just don't make it like that anymore.
Oh, luminescent. And we're
But
also
she's-
joined by Haryan. How are you doing?
Speaking
sir?
of
Hello.
luminescence.
Right. I was going to say, when did this turn into a simp stream?
Hey, now this isn't simping. This is appreciating the
This
flapper.
is absolutely simping.
Real queens.
Yeah,
That
she's
is a
a
real
real
queen.
queen.
Although
It's
she
a
was not
shame.
the original. Go on.
It's a shame most of them are dead.
But all of them are from the Silent era now.
I mean,
But,
arguably, Ivan Novello is also a real queen.
Yes.
Wait. I feel I should balance it out actually and get a bit of Ivor on screen if I can
Thank
find.
you.
He was a dapper lad.
Oh, he's beautiful. I can't get over how beautiful he was.
I mean, it helps to have a lot of stage makeup on.
Yeah, I mean, he did
I was
look like he
gonna
was in
say.
drag. He's more
But
attractive
they all
out
do.
of accidental drag.
Everybody wore makeup back then in films and theatre. It's just what they did. And it
Wasn't
helped with
that so
the,
the? I was going to say, isn't that so the camera can actually capture them?
possibly, but
They're
I've
not just
seen
mute coloured.
I've seen silent films where they hardly wear any at all, and it seems to work.
Unless it's just less obvious, but they're still wearing
It's just
loads.
it was still a lot of them came from the theatre, and it's just old habits die hard, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they're painting for the back.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like the when they were filming the Addams Family. Obviously, it's filmed more recently, but the whole set, it's all shot black and white, but the whole set was bright pink, so that it would kind of would kind of catch the light properly.
I can see some
bizarre.
I see some fellow Lillian Gish simps in the audience. It's very nice.
Oh, good on you, folks. Good taste. Very good taste here.
Louise Brooks is another good mention. Although who was the original flapper though? There's a film called The Flapper.
I think it was Louise Brooks.
No. She came later.
I beg her pardon.
I'll find her. It's
there is one real queen we
Olive
do need
Thomas,
to be aware of,
that's it.
folks.
Olive Thomas is the original flapper.
Haryan knows exactly what's coming.
Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, guys, we've got to be
Do I?
mindful.
Oh, yeah.
He's not even here. He's not even
know.
here for it.
Hello, I'm not here.
I prepped
What's
this.
that?
I thought he'd love that. I might reuse it next week. Yes, guys, we're gonna be done by 10:30 this week, guys. I promise. I promise.
If I have anything to say about it.
Is that
Yeah.
Attack the Block?
No, it's 8 Mile.
Oh, it's 8 Mile. Right, yeah.
Yeah,
What is this about some rappers?
Yeah. Look, I'm culturally eclectic. One week it's a silent film of the 1920s. The next it's rap debuts of contemporary superstars. You know? It's a weird movie, though. Very weird. Anyway.
It's weirder when Super Nanny's superimposed over.
Everything's
Telling she's
weirder
gonna
with
shoot
Super
us.
Nanny.
That is true. I'll give you that. I think that's why Horrorshow keeps using her.
I've got a bit of hooks. I've got
Well,
a bit
everyone needs a fetish. I mean, hobby.
Ooh, woo.
Ooh, woo, indeed. Ooh, woo, indeed. Oh, I kind of had more messing around, but I'll save that weirdness for next week. Otherwise, because we do have a lot to cover in this one. So
I was going to say, for a wannabe German horror show, you're really bad at timekeeping.
There's a joke, but I'm not going to make it. Well,
It's all right if you say it in German.
family.
Ja,
friendly
bitteschön.
thing. No, keine Witze, die funktionieren nicht. Okay. What you said? You said do it in German.
It sounded like
did.
French.
I spent
need-
a bit too much time near Switzerland, so my
that
German
explains it.
sounds a bit off. You may notice.
Apparently, it makes her sound like a yokel.
I like my yokel soundings.
You
Even if I
were.
got bullied for them. Okay, shall we get into the topic section?
Yes, it's going to be
boy.
gross.
All right, folks. So the reason we're doing this is because basically, if we're going to spend a whole bunch of time on the Ripper murders and how they're referenced in horror films, we should probably give people an overview of what's being referenced. It seems sensible. And so, for a quick topic, Waifu, would you like to take people through a primer on the Whitechapel murders of 1888?
Indeed, I shall. I hope no one is eating and that I'm not on mute. Good.
You are not on mute.
I had a horrible moment where I thought I was just talking to myself about Jack the Ripper. Not
Oh,
the
I was
first
eating
time.
then.
You're not. Enjoy your supper.
All right.
So, to set the scene, in the mid to late 19th century, the East End of London saw a massive influx of Irish immigrants, Jewish refugees fleeing pogroms in Russia, and other successive waves of Eastern European immigration, which they largely all kind of came to the parish of Whitechapel, which was very much kind of the slums of London at the time. So that particular parish became increasingly overcrowded, and there were worsening work and housing conditions, not enough jobs to go around, not enough houses to go around. So a significant economic underclass developed. So you ended up with kind of people sharing, literally people would be renting out a bed, which was next to a curtain across part of the room, and then there'd be another bed next door and someone else would be renting out that part of the room, but it would be families in those areas as well.
It's
So
a good thing London is nothing like that today, you know.
Oh,
Well,
hell
exactly.
Yeah.
So in terms of fun facts, 55% of children born in the East End in this period died before they were 5 years old. So cheerful. This is very much setting the scene. Robbery, violence, alcoholism were very commonplace, and obviously kind of as a result of this, a lot of poverty, many women were driven into prostitution. So as a bit of a statistic, there were 62 brothels and 1,200 women working as prostitutes in Whitechapel in 1888. So this is the kind of background to, the autumn of 1888. So between 1888 and 1891, there may have been 11 separate murders, possibly attributable to Jack the Ripper. They were collectively known in the police docket as the Whitechapel murders, but a lot of those are kind of doubted whether or not they actually were killed by Jack the Ripper or whether there were just other murderers around there. So there are 5 distinct murders which are attributable to him directly and are kind of known as the canonical 5. And the more you look into the deets on this, the more gruesome it gets. It's excellent.
And this will be particularly relevant when we come to We got some weird noise there, folks.
That's Haryan.
Haryan. Okay. Yeah, so the
I heard the noise.
canonicity angle is going to be super, super important for the last entry in this series, Whitechapel. Very, very important.
Excellent.
Mm.
So, Friday the 31st of August 1888, in Bucks Row, which is now Durwood Street, in Whitechapel, the body of Mary Ann Nichols was discovered at 3:40 a.m. She'd last been seen 1 hour before her death by a Mrs. Emily Holland, with whom she'd previously shared a bed at a common lodging house in Thrall Street. Her throat had been severed by 2 deep cuts, one of which completely severed the tissue down to the vertebrae. Her vagina, not a family-friendly word, had been stabbed twice, and the lower part of her abdomen was ripped open by a deep, jagged wound, causing her bowels to protrude. She'd also suffered multiple incisions by the same weapon stabbing downwards. So she was found, and obviously there was a certain amount of panic and distress because it's a particularly gruesome way of killing someone. So, people were unsettled, they were worried, it sort of got into the press, lots of people talking about it. And then on Saturday, the 8th of September, so sort of just over a week later, 29 Hanbury Street, near the steps to the doorway of the backyard, the body of Annie Chapman was discovered at around 6 a.m. Her throat had also been slashed with 2 deep cuts. Her abdomen had been cut entirely open, with a section of the flesh from her stomach being placed upon her left shoulder. That detail is sort of, I think, partly how people started recognising Ripper murders, particularly, is to do with kind of where bits of their abdomen go. Another section of skin and flesh, plus her small intestines, had been removed and placed above her right shoulder. The autopsy then showed that sections of her bladder and vagina had been removed. And at the inquest, a woman called Elizabeth Long, who was probably also another prostitute, said she'd seen Chapman standing outside 29 Hanbury Street at about 5:30 in the morning, in the company of a dark-haired man wearing a brown deerstalker hat and dark overcoat of a shabby genteel appearance. And he had apparently asked Annie Chapman, "Will you?" To which she'd replied, "Yes." And that was the last sighting of her before her body was found about half an hour later. So, obviously, these 2 extremely gruesome murders happening in quick succession. Again, kind of huge frenzy, huge sort of fear in the area, really whipped up quite a storm. And I think I get on to... I've got lots of notes for this.
That's cool. That's cool.
So they were... Yeah, so at this point, sort of, I think they'd already had the first letter had possibly arrived, but I will just double check.
I mean, we got one of the things that's obviously getting the attention is that the absolute savagery of the crimes is naturally going to get people's attention. But I don't know if you get onto it, but the ability to spread the word around as quickly.
Oh yeah, I've got lots of stuff on that.
Brilliant.
But yeah, so the second murder happened on the 8th of September, and about 2.5 weeks later, on the 25th of September, a letter that's now referred to as the Dear Boss letter was sent to the Central News Agency in London and received on the 27th of September, and it was forwarded to Scotland Yard on the 29th of September. That date will become relevant in a second. So the letter, and the letters are so creepy. The letter reads, "Dear Boss, I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. I have laughed when they look so clever and talk about being on the right track. That joke about leather apron gave me real fits. I am down on whores and I shan't quit ripping them till I do get buckled. Grand work, the last job. I gave the lady no time to squeal. How can they catch me now? I love my work and want to start again. You will soon hear of me with my funny little games. I saved some of the proper red stuff in a ginger beer bottle over the last job to write with, but it went thick like glue and I can't use it. Red ink is fit enough, I hope, haha. The next job I do, I shall clip the lady's ears off and send to the police officers just for jolly, wouldn't you? Keep this letter back till I do a bit more work, then give it out straight. My knife's so nice and sharp, I want to get to work right away if I get a chance. Good luck, yours truly, Jack the Ripper." Don't mind me giving the trade name.
I
P.S. Wasn't good enough to post this before I got all the red ink off my hands, curse it. No luck yet. They say I'm a doctor now, haha.
Oh man. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, but it's without sounding too admiring, it's stylish. Like,
That was a bit fake.
it's very stylized. I mean, the turn of phrase is incredibly memorable.
Kind of like, you know, when in the Yorkshire Ripper case where that guy from Sunderland sent in that
Yeah.
cassette tape?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds
Yeah.
like to me, but obviously back then, you know,
Well,
he didn't have
that's-
access to a phonograph, so he used a pen and paper.
Well, that's one of the issues, is canonicity of the letters as well as the victims is incredibly disputed. But things like that Dear Boss letter just stick in your head.
So there were 4 or 5 letters in total. 2 of them were definitely written by the same person. So there was a second one that I'll get into in a sec, and it's definitely, in terms of like the stylistic writing, it's quite clear that it's the same person. Others aren't. It's not so clear if they're connected. But they're even creepier, and I'll get onto those in a second. But yeah, I think you can tell from that letter that there'd been a lot of kind of talk about Jack the Ripper, both in the newspapers and kind of just in Whitechapel in general. People were very kind of anxious and apprehensive. So lots of rumours going around. Was he a butcher? Was he sort of working in a slaughterhouse? Was he a doctor? I get into lots of the kind of conspiracies and fears and things. The YouTubers are the ones who will not be blamed for nothing. Excellent.
I am
So,
down
yeah.
on me thoughts, and I will not quit ripping them till I do get buttonholes.
Oh my.
Oh, God.
So yes, that letter was, as I said, was the Dear Boss letter was sent on the 25th of September, arrived at the newspaper offices on the 27th, and was handed over to the police on Saturday, the 29th of September, 1888. On Sunday, the 30th of September, 1888, the night is now known as the double event. So the body of Elizabeth Stride was discovered at an... I didn't put the number in there. It was discovered at some point in the early morning in Dupfield's Yard off Burner Street, which is now known as Henriquez Street. Her cause of death was a single clear-cut incision measuring 6 inches across her neck. The cut had severed her left carotid artery and her trachea before terminating beneath her right jaw. But there were no other mutilations to her body, which is where some uncertainty arises over whether or not she was one of the Ripper's victims, or just killed by someone else, or perhaps the sort of working assumption at the time was certainly that the Ripper was interrupted during the attack. People said they'd seen Elizabeth Stride in the company of a man near where she was found on that evening, but descriptions of what he looked like differed. Some said he was sort of quite tall with dark hair, others said he was tall with kind of mousy blonde hair, or he was short, or he was fat or thin. You know, everyone said they'd seen someone, but what he looked like was hard to pin down. And then, about 3/4 of an hour after the discovery of Elizabeth Stride's body, the body of Catherine Eddowes was found in Mitre Square in the City of London. Her throat had been severed, her abdomen was ripped open by a long, deep, jagged wound. Her intestines, again, had been placed over her right shoulder. Her left kidney and the major part of her uterus had been removed, and her face was disfigured. Her nose was severed, her cheek slashed, and there were vertical cuts through each of her eyelids. Triangular incisions had also been carved on her cheeks, which I think is where the triangle symbolism in The Lodger comes from.
That would explain it.
Yeah, it's just occurred to me, like looking back at it now, having seen The Lodger last night. And a police surgeon said he thought these mutilations would have taken at least 5 minutes to complete. A cigarette salesman called Joseph Lavende said he'd seen a fair-haired man of shabby appearance with a woman who might have been Eddowes shortly before her body was discovered. And later on that night, shortly after, at about 2:55 a.m, a section of Eddowes' bloodied apron was found at the entrance to a tenement in Goulston Street, Whitechapel. A chalk inscription on the wall directly above this piece of bloodied apron read, "Sorry, Susan, the Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." It's not entirely clear whether the message was related to the murders or just incidental graffiti by someone who was had spicy opinions.
Disavow.
Exactly.
Disavow.
But the police commissioner, Charles Warren, feared that this piece of graffiti might cause anti-Semitic riots, so ordered the wall to be washed clean, which isn't quite how modern investigators would approach this, I would hope, in terms of the integrity of a crime scene. But you never know. So yeah, that was the double event, and everyone was understandably extremely freaked out. And then it all went a bit quiet. Except for, so during the kind of frenzy around the murders and the fear, obviously everyone living in Whitechapel was very, very alarmed. So a group was formed called the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, which was essentially like a 19th century neighbourhood watch with teeth. And they were kind of trying to keep an eye. Essentially, they felt they'd been failed by the police, and they were trying to kind of protect their own and sort of catch the guy or look out for each other. And the chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee was a poor chap called George Lusk, who on the 15th of October received a letter claiming to be from Jack the Ripper. There were an estimated 1,000 or so letters claiming to be from Jack the Ripper, but this one is considered to be real, partly because, along with the letter, he was also delivered half a preserved human kidney, which,
Oh, nice.
that would make me sit up and pay attention, to be fair. What a way to start your morning. So the letter reads, and I'm going to have to then go and deal with some sourdough in 30 seconds, so that'll be fun. The letter reads, "From hell. Mr. Lusk, sir, I send you half the kidney I took from one woman, preserved it for you to the piece I fried and ate. It was very nice. I may send you the bloody knife that took it out if you only wait a while longer. Signed, catch me when you can, Mr. Lusk." The original letter and the kidney accompanying it have now been lost. Oh, thanks, British Knight. That's really useful context.
Yeah, I'm just going to get that up on screen.
Yeah. It's an interesting shift, isn't it? So yeah, I find that letter super, super creepy. Not just because of the kidney in the post.
But that also has the "from hell" bit on it, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it was signed in the place that you'd normally write your own address on a letter. For anyone who writes letters now, he'd written "from hell," which is quite a chilling start.
Yes, and obviously gives us the title of our next entry in the Jack the Ripper series, and the graphic novel upon which it is, I want to say based, but
Based.
Alan Moore might disagree with me. He doesn't like the adaptation of his work. He doesn't like any adaptation of his work.
Can't say I blame him. They do seem to change them radically.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was it? Oh, Joel Silver had lied about him being super keen on the adaptation of, I want to say, V for Vendetta.
Oh, you didn't like that? No.
Yeah, Alan Moore just comes out, Joel Silver is a liar and a fraud.
He's a lawyer and a fraud.
Oh. Unmistakable accent.
So wasn't Jack the Ripper really the first kind of serial killer, if it was indeed him who wrote these letters, the first one to really toy with the police and create like a sort of celebrity around himself, a little cult of personality? Is that why he's still remembered to this day, apart from the gruesome murders? Because he wouldn't have been the only person to have been a serial killer in London, and to have done such horrible things.
Well, that is super important because you've got a character called the Lambeth Poisoner around the same time. Obviously, there will have been people who have gone on and done it, but exactly as you say, it's this combination of the time and the place and the technology. Like basically, you're not going to be a serial killer without the reputation, right? It's only when people start putting it together. I don't know if Waifu wants to get onto that and talk. Were you going to get on? Well, do
Yeah,
you want
I
to
was
carry
going
on?
to.
Are you
Yeah, so I was going to finish discussing the murders. I definitely agree with John Gurris that Ripper was probably a bit of a drama queen. In terms of, sorry, I just had to run up the stairs. It's the worst bit of baking I've ever done. It looks disgusting, but anyway, possibly like half a kidney in the post.
I was gonna make that joke. Thought it felt mean.
So, yeah, around the same time that the Ripper murders were taking place, there was also another serial killer operating at the same time, who's now known as the Torso Killer, because essentially along the Thames, bits of women's torsos were sort of washing up. And again, I don't think they might have caught him. I don't know if they did. But he didn't really attract so much attention as the Ripper, I think, because everyone was a bit swamped by the Ripper. And also the bodies didn't appear so close together. They were a bit more spread apart. So I think people were able to kind of forget one before the next one arrived. But yeah, so after the 30th of September double event, there was a pause of about 6 weeks. And then on Friday the 9th of November in 1888, the body of Mary Jane Kelly was found lying on the bed in the single room where she lived at 13 Miller's Court, off Dorset Street in Spitalfields at 10:45 in the morning. Her face had been hacked beyond all recognition, her throat was severed down to the spine, and her abdomen almost emptied of its organs. Her uterus, kidneys, and one breast had been placed beneath her head, and other viscera from her body had been placed beside her foot, around the bed, and a section of her abdomen and thighs had been placed upon a bedside table. Her heart was missing from the crime scene.
God, I wish I didn't Google that picture.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
glad that I chose not to.
I was going to
Yeah,
say,
The
this
frenzy.
is
It's grim.
photography is around at the time. And
Oh, it's been around for a long time, yeah.
Yeah, the photos persist. Can't recommend looking it up myself. I'm not going to put it on screen.
I don't think you'd get away with that from YouTube.
No.
Probably quite wisely. That's one of the few decisions I'd agree with YouTube on. I think to me, it felt kind of important to... hey, that crime guy. I was thinking of doing a podcast about Agatha Christie, which is not true crime. But there we go. Yeah, I kind of felt like it was important to really focus on some of the more gruesome details, not for the sake of being gratuitous, but because the Ripper is such a kind of mythologized figure, it's quite easy to make him into a bit of a joke, and people kind of forget just how awful what he did was. Like, not quite on the scale of Jeffrey Dahmer, but he didn't have quite the same technology. So
it's just clear that he got into some kind of frenzy and just mutilated the crap out of them. Just it's hard to you can't fathom doing such a thing to anybody. Like here he is. He obviously has a gripe against prostitutes, and he's going for their womanhood as well. And then just to put insult to injury, he's just mutilating them and then putting their insides onto their faces and God knows what else. I mean, there's a lot of anger in those deaths if you think about it.
It's the kind of thing that brain just went blank. I think modern kind of forensic psychologists would probably talk about how the murders and that kind of mutilation of them is both very personal and, as you say, very angry and very sort of sadistic. There's a desire to humiliate them after death. And it's the details of them are just, the more you know about them, the more unpleasant they are, really.
Yeah, and there's a thing about the Mary Kelly one is just that this is when he wasn't rushed. There's something very creepy about knowing what he would do and probably what he would have done to all of them if he had the time.
Yeah, because Mary Kelly's was in an actual room. Most of the rest were outside, and just I mean, even when he didn't have time, he did work on them, I suppose, is one way to do it, one way to name it. It was a grim time, and somehow we've had some worse serial killers since somehow.
Mainly in America, I think.
Well, yeah. No, even then, who's the one who kept him under the floorboards?
Are you
I'm not
thinking
good with
Fred
true
West? Fred West?
Possibly, but I think it was a Dennis something.
Oh, Dennis Nilsson. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very basically our own Dharma, although I'm not sure he ate people, but he's similar sort of gay man predating younger men sort of deal. I'm sure that crime guy is probably a bit more on this stuff than we are. This is
Yeah.
I guess
that crime guy.
Next week, that crime guy will return and replace that crime wife and can give more details of gruesome English serial killers, perhaps.
Yeah, BK, you're very, very on the money there. It is interesting. You get the themes at the time that the force was not particularly organised, but they very much sort of did their own little area. The coordination was not particularly established, but yeah, that the idea that they were there to be a presence, to be visible, is there. But I feel there's also a sense that, I don't know, they sort of viewed some areas as lost causes, is the impression I get before, and things like this helped push the effort to make sure policing went into the slums.
I think that's partly true, but they did try. They were doing their best in many ways. So the Whitechapel Division of the Metropolitan Police, CID, were the initial team investigating, led by Detective Inspector Edmund Reed. And later, which not much later, given how quickly all of this happened, Frederick Aberline, Henry Moore, and Walter Andrews were sent from Scotland Yard to assist. So they were all kind of brought in. They were sort of bringing in the big guns, such as they had them at the time. And then after the murder of Catherine Eddowes, which happened in the City of London police were also brought in. So there's a certain amount of territorialism between the different police forces, certainly at the time, probably still now. So for any... so it's because of that kind of conflict, there's like the sort of divide between the two forces sort of is the fault line over which some of the kind of investigation fell apart a bit. It also didn't really help that the newly appointed head of the CID, Robert Anderson, was off on holiday in Switzerland when Chapman, Eddowes, and Elizabeth Stride were killed. So there was a certain amount of lack of coordination, lack of leadership. So beautiful time to have an ice cream van.
Who the hell is having ice cream at 20 to 9? What the heck?
Right, let me explain this. Ever since I moved here, this guy does this every day. And one of these days, I'm going to get an air rifle and shoot his fucking tyres. Oh, sorry. Sorry, wow. This is how much it annoys me. This is sorry. That's just
Mitch in a flaky rage.
Yeah.
Either that or it's covered.
I'm so sorry. I always seem to swear. I told myself, don't swear. And every time I ruin the streams and swear.
Jeez, just don't take him to a secluded place and cut him up, all right?
No. Well, I'm not Mitch the Ripper.
Cut ice cream cones in his face.
Oh dear.
No, I just do what the Scots do and just have an ice cream van and go around on a rampage. You know.
To be fair,
my own gang.
To be fair, right? If you do kill him, just make sure you put hundreds of thousands on his head. Then you can say he topped himself.
Oh,
From
no.
hell. You'll never.
That's awful.
What can I can send a letter to the police from hell. This was such. My nerves were cool. Hey.
Oh.
What if you get the nickname? You can see the Sun headline like Mr. Whippy goes Mr. Rippy. Oh. There's an alternate universe where I write for the Sun, and I kind of wish it was this one.
He was so scared. He was flaky.
Oh.
To be honest, if I kill the three of you for those puns, I don't think a jury in the land would convict.
All right. Back on the serious.
Back on the serious.
Was really fab.
Oh no.
You're lucky you can't see my face right now. So back to the slaughter of women.
The slaughter of wenches.
I was trying to hold it back. Damn it. Okay. Compose.
So I've got a few kind of notes about. So the investigation was obviously a bit disorganized and sort of chaotic, and those kind of territorial issues made it difficult to sort of work out who was in charge. But it was a huge investigation, particularly for the time. And as many say, the Ripper is essentially the kind of first serial killer. Not that there hadn't been serial murderers before, but I think he was kind of something else, really. So, again, additional local context. For anyone who doesn't know London, Spitalfields Market is in the middle of Whitechapel and kind of near the area where all of this took place. And Spitalfields Market at the time was a huge meat market. So it was where there were loads of butchers, slaughterhouses. It's kind of like I guess in New York, there's the sort of meat packing district and the gay village, which is separate. That was an awkward pun.
Hey.
Thank you. Please laugh and validate my ego. So, because of the ways in which the bodies were found, some of the prime suspects were sort of surgeons and physicians, which is partly because of kind of contemporary suspicion of doctors and medical practitioners and kind of a mistrust of science. But the other major group...
Can I step in there? Because there's some good clarity around surgeons at the time.
They were also barbers.
There you go.
Is that the thing?
It's not. Don't think of some Ponzi chap on Harley Street. Think of a guy who's sort of equivalent to where you get a shave.
Mate, I see you've had a blown appendix. Come here, mate, have a shave and I'll sort it out for you.
Something for the weekend.
Very different training. Very different training indeed. Very different. There's definitely a class thing as well. The surgeons, as far as I understand, there's a bit of a military influence in the fact that kept it very much a sort of working class thing.
It's all right. I did this in the Sudan.
Yeah. Well, pretty much. You pick up the skills there. You come back and you'd go to a barber surgeon.
It was a very nasty fruit.
The doctor did the rough work. And
drink a slug of whiskey and bite down on this bit of cloth while I saw your leg off, because they didn't have working anaesthetic.
Totally. And
they did have chloroform, didn't they? They had chloroform and laughing gas.
But they not it wasn't widely used at the time because people thought it was unlikely to, they didn't have a general anaesthetic.
Get gin though.
Basically, they were just
have a bit of Gordon's down here, mate.
From what I remember.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, from what I remember of reading, we went to a museum about anaesthesia in London, which is really worth a visit. It's sort of in the basement of the Anaesthetic Society. Anyway, they basically, it was a kind of slug some gin and hope for the best for most people. Sort of general anaesthetic was I think off the back of my head was being demonstrated around the time, but people were really suspicious that knocking someone out during an operation might make, how would you know you were getting it right? So
it's a big thing when Queen Victoria took anaesthetic, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was like the trust us. It's the equivalent of was it John Selwyn Gummer giving making his kid eat a beef burger during the BSE crisis. I'm very old. You may have picked up on this.
Surgeons were a suspect group, and to be honest, based on that discussion, for good reason. But the other major group were butchers and slaughterers. So, as I said, because this was happening near the kind of massive meat market abattoir area, this was a huge deal. So 76 butchers and slaughterers were visited by the police, and the police investigated all their employees for the previous 6 months and all their movements, which would have been, hundreds and hundreds of people. So it was, for the time, a big effort. That kind of ties into the sort of various theories. So either the murderer was a local working class butcher, which is essentially based on the timing and location of the murders and the sort of slaughtery aspect, But there were other suspicions that the killer was an educated upper-class man, possibly a doctor or an aristocrat. So obviously there's the sort of, maybe he's a sort of posh bloke come in from the suburbs to slash the prostitutes. And that was also kind of tied into sort of fears about the exploitation of the poor by the rich. And I think one of my favorite theories, which is pretty much unfounded, is that it was a member of the British royal family, possibly Queen Victoria's son, Edward? She had a lot of sons, one of them. Or the other one is that Jack the Ripper might have been a pre-Raphaelite artist called Walter Sickert. But those are entertaining theories, but they're probably quite unlikely or unfounded, sadly. So yeah, the other really useful thing to bear in mind is, as Chloe mentioned earlier, sorry, proper horror show, whoops, I've given away your secret identity.
She's called herself Chloe for like years.
Look, I've got my face on screen right now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I keep forgetting how secret you're supposed to be. I don't even know if I know you. Just wait for Bi Visibility Day and suddenly I can see my wife again.
Ugh.
Oh.
You just missed it this year, I gather.
Damn it, I was looking in the wrong direction. So anyway, yes, as Horrorshow mentioned, the sort of newspapers, it was basically tax's fault is the reason that Jack the Ripper became quite as popular as he did, because a change in the way that sort of publications were taxed meant that there was suddenly, it was a lot cheaper and easier to mass produce and publish sort of newspapers, gossip rags, the Police Daily Journal, all sorts of things. So there were suddenly sort of thousands and thousands of newspapers and sort of news sheets and just anything being printed and sold, for half a penny or less. So it's just everywhere.
I mean, the murder of women is absolutely abhorrent, but let's not forget that the Ripper enabled journalists. It's worse than you thought.
Oh, the original check marks.
So as Alexa says, it's the sort of penny dreadfuls. So yeah, it was many. So there also weren't the same high standards of journalism that we expect today. Basically, there was lots of kind of unfounded gossip and fairly biased coverage.
Shocking, I can't imagine it.
Sensationalistic and speculative approaches, false information regularly printed as fact, fake news. That's my best impression of the Orange Man who is bad.
Fake news.
Fake news. I wouldn't go to France. I probably sound completely mental. But yeah, so that kind of led to lots of the sort of gossip and suspicion, and whoever was printing them would sort of put in their pet theory. So, for example, a journalist in the Manchester Guardian reported that the police's attention is particularly directed to a notorious character known as Leather Apron, which was the name that Jack the Ripper initially was sort of known by for the first few weeks, which then led to they basically made up this rumour. And then the police went, well, everyone's talking about it. We should probably check that out. Which meant that John Pizer, a local Jew who made footwear from leather and was known by the name Leather Apron, was arrested, even though the investigating inspector said at the time that at present there is no evidence whatsoever against him.
The Guardian making up lies, never. Yes, this is the same Guardian, by the way.
I was going to say.
Yeah, it is the same one.
The same Guardian, yeah,
they started off up here and moved down south.
It's hard because what's it called? George Orwell said the Manchester Guardian was basically the only worthwhile paper in the early 20th century. So
how the mighty
obviously they weren't perfect. Yeah.
Well, this is before he was born, so
that's true.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, that kind of interplay between the media and the police there, and kind of I sort of love that they basically started this rumor out of nowhere and the police went, well, crap, I guess we better get on and arrest that guy. But yeah, it's a bit awkward. And I think I'm trying to find it in my notes, but I think they did some fairly recently. They did some kind of DNA analysis on some of the stuff remaining. I think possibly one of the letters, and were able to kind of link the letters, two of the letters together. But I cannot now find where I put those notes.
Is this a reference to it, Waifu?
Is what where?
The comment I've just got that British Knight's comment that about the forensic investigation. Well, this of course is disputed because it's always disputed, and one of the things that keeps us alive is the fact that we're so distant from it, and the evidence is so contaminated that you can basically always argue over the theories. Keeps it interesting. I don't think we'd be talking if we knew the guy for certain.
Yeah, I think it would probably be a lot less interesting, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know about Kuzminski. It was something else I thought I'd seen, but I might have just dreamt that up.
Well, whoever it was clearly... I don't think he would have been rich. Because why would he have such a scorn for prostitutes? Not to say that they can't, but it's just an anger and frenzy in the murder suggests that he was either brought up by one. No, he was either brought up by one or lived amongst them. So he's from a poor background and built up some kind of hatred. Maybe he had a bad experience with one of them. And he's already
he was just a righteous Christian, and he thought, we can't let God do all the work.
Well, then he'd have to get rid of Mary Magdalene.
I think maybe I'd know someone who'd been burned by them before, maybe picked up something, maybe syphilis, that contributed to an unstable mental state. And it's a guy who knows the area.
Did he? Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
They reckon that the murders stopped essentially because either the guy left the country, possibly. So there were some theories that he might have been a sailor or sort of on one of the sort of merchant ships at the time, so possibly left the country, or that he was arrested for some other crime and was never connected with the Ripper murders. It was. I'll stop rabbiting because I can't find the rest of my notes. But the one other final thing that I thought was quite fun is sort of two things. In 2006, a BBC History magazine poll selected Jack the Ripper as the worst Briton in history. And
I don't know.
He could have been Polish.
Yeah, he might not even have been British. Yeah.
We disown him. He's not one of ours.
The immigrants coming over, taking our worst British people award. Just...
And then earlier this year, there were protests when the second of two Jack the Chipper fish and chip shops opened in Greenwich, with some patrons threatening to boycott the premises.
How dare they?
That is Jack the Ripper for you.
So it's okay to mythologize the guy, but if you dare do something like name your fish and chip shop Chipper, that's going over the line. Oh, okay. You can make feminist plays about him, and that's okay.
Well, I think the thing is with the feminist plays and stuff, I think there's a lot of emphasis on, like, make it about the women, focus on what happened to the women. Don't mythologize him further.
But they are adding to the mythology by doing that.
Area. Yeah, exactly. I feel like that kind of brings us on to the first in a long line of films about the Ripper.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I know you're worried about getting it all out there, and it's a bit difficult to do things on the sly. Sometimes we get the phrasing a bit wrong. But, it's not going to be the worst phrasing that we've seen on a stream this week, to be honest.
To explain who Jimmy Savile is.
Well,
Jimmy Savile was
too young for... Oh, for God's sakes. Maybe we shouldn't have brought the comedian on for this one.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so a lot of people may not know who Jimmy Savile is. I'm a bit too young for Jimmy Savile.
Well, do you want me to explain who Jimmy Savile
is? I'm a bit too young for Jimmy Savile.
Well, do you want me to explain who Jimmy Savile is?
Well,
sorry.
I don't think anyone...
I had slipped that. I hadn't cut it down. I'm sorry, guys.
I wonder if Jack the Ripper would still top the list of worst Britons.
Nah, no way. Jimmy's worse, isn't he?
On your list of top nonces.
Top nonces.
Chloe and I had a weird discussion today about who our top nonce would be. We have a very healthy relationship.
Oh, gosh.
That's so macabre.
I don't think I can keep the comments YouTube friendly, but it was something along the lines: if you're short of fuel for the wood chipper, you know. Right.
That's
Okay,
still from the
folks.
film.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
we're
think
onto the
we
film.
should probably move on to the film.
Can I add a little bit of background to the film, because I did some research on it?
Absolutely. Go
So
ahead, Mitch.
this is technically, I think it's Hitchcock's third film. He'd done 2 films previously, did Champagne and The Mountain Eagle, and both of them initially were railroaded by the studio because the guy who owned it was unsure about him, and so the success of his career was hinged on this. And he pulled out all the stops. But before this film had even been thought of, and he'd started filming it, he'd been in Germany, and he was filming, I think, Champagne and The Mountain Eagle, and he'd started watching the films of F.W. Murnau and Fritz Lang, the expressionist people. He'd gravitated towards that, and this is why when you watch this film, you see all the dark shadows, the expressive. Well, the acting style is actually quite muted for expressionist films.
I've got you covered.
Mm-hmm.
Since you mentioned
Nosferatu.
Murnau.
Was that Murnau? Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah. Actually, see, and that's The Lodger. But also what he had, I think, from another director is the weird camera angles. It's always like from the top down, and then or from the bottom, and then you've got the tinting as well, which a lot of films did anyway. But it really adds to the effect of, like, if it's at nighttime, it's a blue shade. If it's a dark interior, if it's a dark interior, it's just black and white. It's mainly sepia tone throughout, though.
Yeah, it actually took us a while to work that out. It was sort of, why does it keep... Now, folks, if you watch this, you will have seen it switching between these, 4 tones.
Yeah, it's a simulate nighttime, daytime, inside places, things like that. Although it became less and less frequent, actually, funnily enough, between 26 and 27. Also, this is the year that The Jazz Singer came out, so this film was obsolete, essentially. But the film was a success, and the other 2 films were released as well. And then what's also interesting is this film was released 40 years after the murders, and we are currently, here's something interesting, 40 years after the Yorkshire Ripper murders as well. Isn't that very interesting? He was as far removed back then as the Yorkshire Ripper is to us. In fact, he just recently died.
Yeah, that seems quite alarmingly close, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, for context, like I have members of, my mother was warned about not going out, don't stay out, don't go to this area because of the Yorkshire Ripper.
Yeah,
she lived broadly in the sort of one of the various areas he was active in, I think, at the time.
Yes, indeed. So,
So there were people who watched this film, there may even been people involved in the making of it, who were alive at the time, whether they were kids or adults, who remembered it.
Oh, definitely.
And it's based on a novel that was written just a few years after the murders had stopped.
Yeah,
called The Lodger. Yeah.
Yes, that novel was a short story by Marie Belloc Lowndes, and the short story was 1911, and it was expanded into a full novel in 1913. So just
there you go. So this, very
contemporary, basically.
Yes. I don't know. Was it one of the first? Was it one of the first films based off a book, or?
No, it did. Loads of films back then were based on plays and books.
Right.
This has been. Remember, films have only been going for about 30 years. So, funnily enough, just after the Ripper had stopped murdering was when I think the first film was made. So, also another thing is, what was I going to say now? Oh, I've got to remember it quickly. Quick, Mitch. Think.
I've related to Mitch. Go on, we're on tenterhooks here, man. We're on tenterhooks.
I've lost it. Crap. What was I going to say? Talk, and I'll remember it.
Okay,
I remembered it just now. Oh. This is Hitchcock. Hitchcock, looking back on it, says this is his first proper Hitchcock film because it's got the blonde and she's a dangerous object of desire. It's got the thriller aspects to it, and the man on the run from the law. It's all there, all the building blocks to create the classic Hitchcock film.
Mm.
He did in this film, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's the first one I've seen.
What, the first Hitchcock film you've ever
I've
seen?
never seen a Hitchcock film, yeah.
Not the first one you should have seen.
We should lock him in the basement and make him watch the rest.
God, Zoomers really are the most uncultured swine, I swear to God.
Yes.
Although, to be fair, I only saw my first Hitchcock film after a couple of years of being with Chloe, so...
Tis,
If you
It's
forgive me,
really has that
folks, I've got
influence.
to let the cat out.
God, what's going on in that house? Bloody sourdough's being made, cats being let out. It's a zoo.
It's very wholesome. We tucked all the chickens in shortly before the stream began. One of them is currently sitting on a clutch of eggs.
Oh, that
Fertile
reminds me.
eggs.
That reminds me. I need a KFC this weekend.
Oh,
Hey.
don't bait
I've
him.
never heard that joke before in my
He
life.
takes the bait every time. Yeah, so
It puts the bait on its skin, or else it gets the hose again.
oh dear, dear. Weak. Okay, let's focus, guys. Let's focus. Super Nanny will be so mad with us. Okay.
It's all right. It's all right. It probably will actually be a 3-minute plot. There's a lot to talk about, but the plot's pretty thin for this because, I mean, the first
3
10 minutes. Yeah,
3 minutes will be over.
Yeah, like the first 10 minutes of this film is all about how a woman's been murdered. It's been found with a little Avenger in a triangle as a calling card, which I thought is weird because I don't think calling cards are actually a real thing for murderers, but
Well, Zodiac had one, didn't he?
for like one of his murders.
It feels
So-
to me a lot more like something screenwriters do. Before
Yeah.
we get into the plot, shall we? There's
Okay.
just like a little more setup that I think is really interesting.
Okay, yeah.
So just to know, as you say, you've done the influence Mitch. You've covered that well. That it's the first one Hitchcock's proud of and considers really his own style. I think we'll probably get into the studio's effect on it at the end.
Yeah.
When we get to that section, but just noting here that this was lost for a very long time. What we managed to put around was the 2012 restoration by the British Film Institute, and they went through 9 films that had basically been lost to time, and did all the painstaking bottom-up restoration work in order to get them watchable again. Which is how we're able to enjoy such a high quality version of it. Now, unfortunately, one of the versions that was initially linked had absolutely terrible music on it.
Luckily, I didn't watch that version.
It was bearable up until you got to the bloody singing.
Yeah, see, I saw that. I was going to play that version first when I was last minute watching it. And I read the comments and thought, right, the soundtrack's terrible. And then you just go down a few pages and then you'll find a proper version, and this composer apparently was basing it on the original score. So there is a version out there with better music. It's a bit too bombastic, but it works. It does work.
It is something that we should maybe clarify for people. And yeah, we would love London After Midnight. Anyway, something we should point out about how people watched things in 1920 is this is not how you watch a film today. This is a completely different setting. Now, it's far from the cinema of the 1880s and 1890s, where it's a bit more, how can I say, shabby. You are getting proper cinemas that are really dedicated to showing films. They are set up specifically for it. And you have live accompaniment with the score. So you're still getting your things like your Keystone Cops, sort of shambolical comedies. You're getting that around, but you're having a organist usually do live accompaniment with an adapted organ. And sometimes these organs would be able to do special effects as well. So they'd not just do the sounds of...
Sorry, I hit a
South North.
button and a thing appeared by accident.
Not just doing the score for the song, but they'll also do
I will
sound
add,
effects as well.
I will add, though, they did have something called sound on disc in the early 20s, which became, at least in Hollywood, pretty standard. And that was basically, you'd have a soundtrack. It was the first kind of proper way they got soundtracks. No speaking yet. Although that year the Jazz Singer was released. But basically it'd be the soundtrack. They could do sound effects. And I think the first film was not The Thief of Baghdad. It was a different one. Hang on. Let me look it up.
I've got to confess, I haven't seen The Jazz Singer.
I've only seen, the famous bit. You ain't seen nothing. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Imagine.
What was it?
Just while you're looking that up, Haryan.
Well,
this is the earliest film we've ever covered.
yes,
Would
it is.
Would it be fair to say this is like the earliest film you've ever seen?
That I can remember. I think the next earliest one I've probably seen is Harvey, but that was a 50s film.
Good taste.
Yeah, it's my mum's favourite film, so that's why I've seen it. But I've never seen an actual silent film all the way through. I've seen clips of silent films before, but that's in kind of documentaries and stuff like that. So, yeah, this is probably the earliest film I've seen in my life, and it's. I mean, it was a pretty good one, from what I can say.
I think it's the same for me.
Just while there's comments in the chat, London After Midnight is a bit of an interesting one. It's a lost film, a horror by, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, it's got Lon Chaney Jr., who's quite a fascinating figure, basically. He was a man known as the Man of 1,000 Faces, and he was his films would be billed based on his elaborate horror makeup. So a lot of these are done in the silent era, and unfortunately we've lost a lot of them. One of the ones we've lost is London After Midnight, which is a Ripper style movie, but his makeup for that we do have an impression of, and it kind of looks a little bit like the Penguin. I'll try and find it for you.
It was The Thief of Baghdad, I think, with Douglas Fairbanks. I think it was that one where they had sound effects and stuff that was on the film itself. I think. Yeah.
One of the only surviving Lon Chaney films, I think, one of the few, is The Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, his makeup is amazing in that.
So then there's somewhere I saw recently for like Halloween is doing a screening of it with like a proper old-fashioned, like using an organ and everything for the music. It just sounds
Although by
fantastic.
the 20s, even if you didn't have a soundtrack, if they didn't have speakers to play the sound on disc, they did have full orchestras at this point. So you could get a full orchestral accompaniment to your favourite film.
Amazing.
And what people need to remember as well is that it was
corrected. Thank you, Henriette.
Yeah, not Junior. What people got to remember is that it was a purely visual medium at this time. There was no speaking, very little sound effects. You maybe the odd film would have singing, so the Jazz Singer was not unique in that regard. But when that came out, because Al Jolson talked in it, that's what was immediately different. Also, there was 3D being made at around about this time as well, believe it or not. It was in very early stages, but it was. I remember there was a silent film documentary by Paul Merton, of all people. Like, he's well into it, and it was Hayes, the guy who did the Hayes Code. He did this little announcement to the people, and he was speaking in it, so he was showing off sound recording, and then he also showed off 3D.
My word.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what method they used at the time for that?
I have no idea. I just know that there's like 6 of him at one point, because that's how 3D works. If you don't wear it.
Goodness
He's like,
me.
we have new technology that will bring you closer to the screen or something. Yeah.
They keep trying to make 3D work, and it's
Never will. No.
No. Okay, so that should
back
give you
every couple of decades. 3D.
I
It's
know.
really
Maybe a
annoying.
century.
They always want to, and they always try and bilk you for a few more quid for your ticket. It's terrible. Anyway, so I think you've got a bit of background about what it's like when it's being made, some of the conditions. So hopefully explains a little bit more about why the lodger looks the way the lodger does. And with that said, Haryan, would you like to take us through?
We're like half an hour late for the start of this. Let's go. And my video just uploaded, and I was about to tweet it out, but no, I've got to do this, right? So, as I was saying before, it's quite light on plot, this really, but that's kind of expected. Well, I expected it from an early kind of film. So, start this film, after all the credits roll, there's you basically see the murder of the woman, but it's not in like the graphic detail you'd get today. It's all very subtle. It's just her screaming, and then the next shot's her dead, and then a load of policemen are all taking notes from witnesses and things like that. You get quite a funny thing with the crowd where she's saying, "Oh, he was." Oh yeah, you get your first title card, and it's like, "Oh, tall he was," where covering his face. And even from that, you can tell her accent. You can tell it's like Cockney.
Oh yeah.
Which I kind of like. And then
did you like seeing the embankment as it was?
Yeah, they shot on location, didn't they?
Yeah.
Where it's just all you can really see is the street lamps. it's in Monday you'd have, well, with modern cameras it'd be like the whole thing you'd see end to end, but as you can see on the screen it's just kind of light, and that's all you can really see. And I kind of like,
though. He could have shown more of it, but he wants it to be that.
Yeah, exactly. So after the police have got all this info, they call the station, and then journos, the filthy journos, got a hold of it, and it shows you how the news is getting out. Basically, that I think this is the 7th murder, is it? 7th murder of a girl with golden hair, or fair hair, I think they say.
Yeah, tonight golden curls.
Yeah,
and it's quite a lot to get used to, isn't it? Just that flashing up, isn't it?
There's the first cameo.
Yeah, you're ahead of the game there. That is indeed. So yeah, obviously with when Waifu was going through the history of the Ripper, giving you the overview, you see how important the press are to it, and the film gets straight to that. The press are getting the word out immediately, and the chap sitting at the desk there is a Mr. Alfred Hitchcock, getting a sneaky cameo in straight away 4 minutes into the film.
They believe that's his first ever one as well, apparently.
If you don't know, Hitchcock is famous for his cameos, some of which he had to be very creative to get in.
So a bit like Peter Jackson.
Oh, he's far more creative. So when he did things like Rope or Lifeboat, where you're really, you're in a lifeboat, there's 2 guys, what are you going to do? Or Rope, you've got a very limited number of people and you're stuck in an apartment the entire film. What are you going to do? And he did things like he got his famous Hitchcock silhouette and he put that in an advert in the paper, or he put it on an advert on like neon lights outside the apartment windows. So he got very creative in getting himself in.
Very nice. So, plot-wise, this is cameo. And as I said, this is the journos getting out the report, which is literally about 2 paragraphs long, just saying girl dead in 7th murder. Which, if you've got a serial killer, you'd think you'd have more than that. But it's kind of like a documentary after that, where it shows you all the printing presses and the newspapers being made and delivered and things like that. And then it's, late in the evening, body of a woman with fair hair died. That's been flashed up on a I don't know what they'd be called back in the day, but
not a billboard.
It's not a billboard though. It's like a
sandwich board, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like on a sandwich board, and then it's on one of those things where it like lights up with it.
So I know it was years ago.
Big screen things.
Yeah, but they're really thin and only use lights to write letters.
It's just like Times Square, right? I mean, yeah. Back then,
Yeah, and then the word murder flashed up on the screen, and I don't hot over the aerial. So it's a silent film, so you just get a load of radio presenters presenting radio.
That's how they used to do radio. Yeah. They actually used to, in America at least, they used to not film but record silent films being made, so you could hear their voices.
I did not.
And that's where the guys who made the jazz singer got the idea from. I think it was it MGM? No, it's 20th Century Fox, wasn't it? The guy was like, well, how come they can hear them all on the radio, like doing interviews and doing performances? Why can't they just hear it on the screen? So there you go.
Yeah. So after it's basically been established that news like this gets around, we're then introduced to a load of girls in a dressing room in the backstage of a show, I assume.
Yes,
I don't know what
fashion show.
Yeah, fashion show.
Yes, I've got that. I thought I'll hold off for a moment. I was going to play it just so people, if you haven't actually watched it, guys, it is on YouTube for free. If you follow my Twitter, I've given you links to the ones that have got the good sound. We'll play a bit in a second because I should probably get onto the fashion show.
I could find you the one that I watched.
Good work.
No, you've probably got it.
There we go.
Yeah, because it looks like it's because they're in the back room. The news is spread around, and this is a thing that was kind of annoying me with. And I get it's a thing of the time, but you'd see them having whole conversations, and you just have to guess what they were saying. And then after like 10 words were said to each other, or 10 sentences were said to each other, there's like one line from one of them.
I can explain that
just
for the
fill
Lodger.
in the gaps.
I can explain that because most silent films have had far more intertitles than this.
Yeah.
So like,
well, this one did originally.
It had 500.
Yes, it did, and the studio said no, cut it down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would have annoyed me even more. To be fair.
Hitchcock had to remove loads of them.
I think the less is better with silent films because it just gets in the way of the visuals.
Yeah, I think you get
really
into it. You get into it eventually. It is very. This is one of the things I think would be so interesting showing to people and showing to. I don't take it the wrong way, but like showing it to Haryan because I just think you've never seen stuff like this, and I'm just so interested in how people react to it when it's so out of the usual frame of reference.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like you couldn't follow what was going on. It's just you're missing a lot of the dialogue with Daisy and the girls, and that's in Monday. That's something that'd be like interesting for me anyway, because it's character. It's showing character a bit more.
You want to hear women, Haryan?
No, look, I want to hear women when it's not 6 of them in a cabin laughing at some bloody pajamas like in The Descent.
Oh, Haryan, you're on thin ice. I love this. Just while we're here, though, I wondered, did you have a clue what was going on in this scene and what these women were doing?
I just assumed it was a catwalk.
I
have notes on this.
Go on.
It's very
You've activated
exciting.
our track card.
So this is basically how people used to buy clothes. Well, rich people used to buy clothes. So you know how like they have the London Fashion Week or whatever now, and it's just essentially people sit and watch loads of models walk past and go, "Isn't that nice?" and get photographed at the shows. And they will then sort of buy the fashion, some of the things afterwards, but it's a bit more of it's more of an elite thing, and it's a bit more kind of at a distance. At the times in the 20s, being a mannequin was a job, or being a model, but in a very different way to kind of how we see it today. So, if you wanted to buy clothes, you would go to. In fact, I've got a quote from a novel, "I Capture the Castle" by Dodie Smith, which was published in 1949, but set in the mid-1930s, and so it was sort of similar to how things were done in the 20s. And in it, a young woman is talking about getting her trousseau ready before she gets married. So that's kind of getting the clothes she'll need to start married life. And she says, "I think you'll be surprised at the way we do it. We hardly go to real shops at all, but to large, beautiful houses. There are drawing rooms with crystal chandeliers and little gilt chairs all around. And you sit there and watch the mannequins walk past in the clothes. You have a card and pencil to mark down what you like." And so you'd get various young women, the models, would all be kind of sitting backstage. There would be sort of maybe 4 or 5 models often per show, with perhaps 100 gowns to show between them, divided into morning, afternoon, and evening gowns, and then sort of within that divided into town and country wear. Cocktails would be handed out between the evening dresses and court gown presentations. And so you essentially the models would walk between the chairs to show not so much guests as future customers the different clothes they were wearing and kind of posing in specific ways. So some outfits would look better with your hands in your pockets. Some would look better if you kind of splay the skirt as you walk. So they'd all be kind of taught how to display the clothes to their best effect. It's much more, to me, it sounds a bit more kind of personal than the kind of way that high fashion is done now. And also it was happening at a sort of almost a slightly lower price point. So it was more for the kind of perhaps upper middle class in society, sort of that higher levels, but not kind of like ultra elite. And yeah, I think my grandparents owned a department shop in Surrey, and they would have sort of, I think for a bit in the early days of the store, they did have kind of shop models who would, put on the clothes and sort of show the clothes to customers. So that would have been in the very early days of the 20th century.
Yeah, one thing that made this really interesting for me throughout the watch, just like aside from the horror angle, is just seeing this 1920s society is amazing. And when we're talking about sort of the contemporariness of the murders, of the Ripper murders for people in this film and watching in the audience, it's kind of interesting for me that there's a certain contemporariness for us too, watching it back nearly 100 years later. Like,
yeah,
basically, this is a world that my grandparents knew. I know I'm older than you, Haryan, and Mitch as well, but these are things that my grandparents knew. I just find it absolutely amazing trying to get a look into the world they were in.
Yeah, it is like a perfect window into the past. With Hitchcock, it always will be. Really, he never tries to idealize anything, from what I know. I say that having this been the first film I've watched of his, but
no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So he shows you, for instance, like for all the romanticizing of the 60s, Psycho was made in 1960, and it's very unromantic. It's showing things that were very scandalous. The idea that you'd show premarital sex or not even premarital sex, but premarital relations on screen was shocking. Even the fact that there was a woman in a brassiere, scandalous. So yeah, he's very de-romanticized. It's just he's even though he's stylish, he shows things as they are.
Yeah, because I was surprised to see the bath scene in this film, but it was.
Oh, I know, shocking. You could see her toes.
Exactly, that was like porn at the time, I assume.
Yeah, John Garcia. I think. Are you referencing Psycho? With it being, it's meant to be the first horror film to have a toilet on screen. Is that right?
He's showing a murder, but no toilets, please.
Scandalabra. Yeah. Okay,
right,
so shall we move on?
We spent 15 minutes talking about a fashion show and not the plot.
This is what happens when you get more women on than just the show.
Right. Get Super Nanny on screen.
Oh, you don't even like this week's Super Nanny. Are you sure you want her back?
No, because I'm talking about the plot.
All right, go. Go.
So after kind of the backstage chat with the women and all that, we are introduced to Daisy, who is our protagonist, I suppose you could say. And yeah, she's a fashion model. As you say, we went through the catwalk and all that. And that's when they found out that there's been a 7th murder from the Avenger. And they say, the women are like, I'm not dyeing my hair blonde anymore, things like that. And I quite like this bit because it showed Daisy being quite clever. I think it was Daisy, or as a friend, and she put fake brown locks on either side of the front of her hair to disguise the fact that she's a blonde. It's like, I'm protecting myself, and I kind of like that. It showed a kind of cleverness. It was a neat detail. So then she heads home, and that's when we're introduced to the police. Not yet. Is he police detective at this point? It's policeman anyway, Joe.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're talking about the case as well, saying hopefully we'll get him by next week and things like that from someone who is only known as the husband. And we have the landlady, which honestly,
Mrs. Bunting.
Mrs. Bunting, as she's called.
Is it
She's
Bunting or Bunding?
I'm not sure because
Bunting.
it's in the credits. It's just she's known as the landlady.
Yes.
Which I was again quite surprised at because that's kind of a woman as the master of the house rather than the husband from what that's implying. So I don't know how common that was. I imagine it was quite common because it was common in Road to Wigan Pier as well.
It seems to be that she's managing that because it's sort of, it's keeping house. You see him go out for different work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because he waits on a, upper class dinner party or something like that. So,
and I'm back.
But, yeah, and it looks. I mean, the house looks very working class to me, but I imagine that was actually quite middle class for the 20s.
I mean. It's a place where it's a 3-story house, isn't it? So
yeah,
I mean, they were probably getting towards middle class because they probably made most of their money from lodgers and her modelling. And the man of the house he was a waiter of some kind, or at least he did a bit of waiting. He
seems to just take on what we would call now agency work, I suppose, but he just seemed to take whatever jobs he could.
Agency work that pays well, clearly.
Yeah, exactly. Despite the fact he has a bad back.
Tash is absolutely right. There's that great scene where she's scrubbing the brass and he's just got his foot up with a pipe and newspaper.
Very, very Chad.
Big Chad up. He's a bit of a Chad in this, though. He lays the law down.
Yeah. And we've got Joe as well, who is a bit of a simp for Daisy.
It's a boyfriend, though.
Yeah, comment about how the landlady was doing one of the only jobs women could do. They could do a fair amount, to be honest, in the 20s. So
they could do a fair amount even before that.
Yeah. So, for example, they were sort of there were the kind of usual domestics. Sorry, it's just a little nitpick of
mine.
Fine. One of my favourite things is the crime writer Dorothy L. Sayers, author of the Lord Peter Wimsey mysteries, worked for a very long time in advertising alongside her writing career. There are plenty of women doing that sort of thing. So it wasn't just that you were kind of relegated to sort of working as a landlady.
I mean, it was a woman who wrote the book, and lest we forget, the assistant director was the lovely Mrs. Hitchcock.
So yeah, yes, it was arguably more restrictive, perhaps, but it wasn't sort of like women were stuck in the house. That's one of those things I always like to challenge because I think it's an important misconception.
It's a bit of a myth, let's be honest.
It's an understandable myth, but it is one of those things that I think is a sort of what would you call it, a reframing. It's like a narrative.
You mean feminist propaganda?
Oh,
in a very nice way, yeah. I'll just call it an outright lie.
Well, there were definitely. So it was definitely the case that, for example, once you got married, you were often expected to sort of give up a professional career. That didn't always happen, but it was more expected. But to be honest, I think you could get into lots of discussions about whether or not that might be better for the health of a family to have one parent at home. But that's a whole other side topic. But yes, it was kind of it's a more varied picture than I think a lot of people think it is.
Yeah.
So, but then at the same time, you do have that glorious.
I mean, the 20s is called the first modern decade.
I can see it.
I do love the scene of her scrubbing away and him just there with a newspaper. It's like, oh, you bastard.
I was going to gif that because I just thought it looked amazing.
To be fair, he had worked all night, the day before.
Yeah, he needed his rest.
Haryan, if you want to take us through that, I think I'm actually just going to get it playing for a bit so people can see what it looks like.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Where he's introduced.
I'll just have it on playing for a bit. Give me a second.
There is quite
with the domestic.
Yeah, because there is quite a bit of family life being showed here. Because you see Joe trying to flirt with Daisy, and she's having none of it. And that the landlady is like trying to get the husband's attention, saying, "Oh, look, isn't that cute?" And the husband's just like,
Malcolm
"Meh."
Keane, there he is. He's a bit of a chad himself.
Also,
in real
just
life.
how much did you guys just pause and go like, "Oh, everyone is dressed so amazingly"?
I mean,
I just noticed it more than pause for thought on it.
I feel like I should wear a 3-piece suit around the house more often. And put my feet up on the sofa while you scrub the floors, Chloe.
That makes sense.
This is the future you wanted.
Yeah, I like the the landlady's wearing an apron most of the time as well. Shows that she's busy.
It's very moral. She's Daisy with her cloche hat. Just look how everyone's put together.
But everyone is well dressed. Because just after this, we then meet the lodger, he's still dressed relatively smartly, but he's just he's like a lurch.
Can we just point out what a creep Joe is with that line? Like
well, I say I'm like the murderer. I like blonde hair.
Oh God, yeah. Made me think he was the murderer for most of the film, despite the fact we're obviously supposed to think it was
the lodger.
Else.
Well, there is a twist, which we'll get into.
I mean, I saw it coming miles away. I'll explain
when
why.
I first watched it, I knew he wasn't the murderer.
Yeah. Well, so we'll get into that because the lodger is then introduced, and he's just very lurchy and a bit weird.
Iconic shots ever.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me when you see Jack the Ripper first time in Assassin's Creed. But he's got like a white sack on his face, and it's just a close up of his face, and it is really creepy. This might have even inspired that. I wouldn't be surprised if it is. Yeah, just
one time you see
lurchy.
fog.
Yeah, there's not as much fog in this as was billed. We were a bit robbed of fog. Gorgeous.
There wasn't always fog outside, but there was quite a lot of fog outside. There's fog every time that door opens.
And that's just silent films in a nutshell. All you need to see is his eyes. That's it.
Amazing.
Yeah. So and you've got the husband of the house who like fell off a chair, and then Daisy's just laughing at him. And I was like, wow, that's not very moral. That's anti-family values.
And it was the thing that annoyed me so much was he was just lying there flapping around. I was like, bro, just move the chair out the way and get up.
Yeah.
Just a bit of humour. 1920s humour. Nothing wrong with that.
They were keeping it light, because we've got to remember in this. This is probably something else I should have said about how people watched films in the 1920s. We're very organised now. We go for a specific showing and we sit all the way through. It's not how they did it in the day. No. I'm not certain. Maybe you could help me out with this, but I believe it was basically people pay a very small amount and they just go in and they'll leave whenever they fancy. You'd stay for a bit. The films would typically be a lot shorter. So you get a lot of things that were only sort of 15, 20 minutes long. And you'd maybe sit through a few of them and then head out again.
Yeah, because, the feature film, it gets its name because it's the feature. And it's, it's over 60 minutes long, up to an hour and a half,
Exactly.
It's the big film of the day or the night.
Scoop Dog, that is indeed true. We talked about
this.
It's
not green.
It was in one famous case in James Whale's Frankenstein, the 31 version. That was, but
he was green. But in most cases, it was white and black or grey.
And that's why Frankenstein's monster is always depicted as green now.
But yes, the makeup would have been very, very different to make it look right on film.
I mean, it came from the theatre mostly.
Oh, absolutely.
They're all theatre actors,
It's very painted for the stage. Yeah, sorry, Haryan. Carry on, friend.
No, it's fine. Yeah. I mean, he looked like he had lipstick on as well. I found that a bit distracting.
I've got a good version of that. What a gay, you say?
Yeah, it's gay to wear lipstick.
Well, Ivor the Bella was a bit,
No, he was just the.
No, he was in real life.
Yeah, I know.
I wasn't going to force it, but I mean, since you brought it up so organically,
we're not doing.
There is a gay joke in this film.
The homoerotic subtext of
so much subtext.
is
That's a
so.
Hitchcock thing.
I mean, I thought you'd have
Yeah,
noticed
but
it
oh, come on, the
straight
top
away.
left was
Haryan.
wrong. Come on, you're pushing the top left. Queer meant weird back then. Come on, you can't do that.
No,
I'm made, ladies and gentlemen, is what they're saying.
That's
the gay joke in the top right.
I'm never coming on the stream again.
I couldn't resist it. I couldn't resist it. I knew I had to try and put something together.
I saw what you were doing there. I caught you out. I'll call you out for that.
I've been trying to explain the plot for half an hour. We're only 10 minutes into the film.
All right.
So next, the lodger's shown his room. He seems a bit wary of the fair-haired pictures of girls on the wall. And then he looks out the window and he's distraught. He seems distraught anyway by the fact there's a paper boy, I guess you'd call him, but they were town crying back then as well. So shouting about the Avengers. I've never seen a town crier in any town in England.
No, they used to do it when, like back in the day, they'd have the guys who would stand outside selling newspapers. They used to do that. That's just what they're doing. It's not a town crier. He's selling a newspaper.
No, I know that, but they were like shouting the news out as well at the same time. It's what I meant.
Up until 20 years ago.
I'd never seen it in my life, but I am 25. All right. So, and he's just distraught basically, and he's asked, is £2 10 shillings good? Like, is that okay per month? Which I don't know how much that is in modern money. It seems expensive from what I know. £2 10.
£2 10 shillings.
Yeah, I don't know how much that would be in modern money, but I assume it seems a fair bit just for a room. Though it is a spacious room.
It looks pretty gorgeous, doesn't it?
Yeah. So there's not too much to say. You're just kind of introduced to him, and then he hides his bag and locks the drawer behind it.
That would be about £181 today. £2.
That's still
10-ish.
cheap. That's
wow,
cheap.
I'd kill for that. For a week.
Cheap.
Nah, that's not as cheap as I thought.
Yeah.
The actual specifics are more just like you're meant to get the impression that he's absolutely loaded and he's carefree with the money. That's all that matters in the dynamic. Is she's shy about asking for this specific money, and he's just like, nah, have a month. See you later, John. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they even go down. Well, even when the rest of the family sees it, they're all checking to see if it's counterfeit.
Yeah.
They're like, how's that? How's he done that? So, she then comes back up with his food, and he says, "Can you take the pictures down because they distress me, basically?" And she's like, "Oh," so they do it, and she's like, "Oh, but it's ugly." And he's like, "Yeah, I know it's ugly, but I don't like them."
Do you know why it was ugly on the walls?
Do I know? No. Well, he wanted them out of the room. I assume he didn't want to see them at all.
With the pictures being taken off and the sort of square marks left behind, it was because of the sort of candle and
right.
sort of smoke from the fire, and also because everything was gaslit, so lots of gas fumes and things. Also, I was wrong. It wasn't 180 a week; it was 90 a week. I did maths wrong.
That's very cheap.
Yeah.
Although wasn't electric light pretty common then as well in the 20s?
Possibly, but this house does have gas lights.
There still would have been a few like that, but I can imagine like this would be quite a rare house for 1927.
It just seems like an old Victorian townhouse to me.
It is,
yeah. So that's probably why it's all gaslit. So the pictures are removed, and the lodger just wants to be left alone, and even locks the door behind him. Basically, everything he's doing is very, very suspicious, and he doesn't like fair-haired girls. It's kind of like, oh, wonder why that is. And this is at the point where I'm like, yeah, he's not the murderer. They're laying this on way too thick. And yeah, they kind of make a bit of fun of him downstairs, and they can tell he's pacing in his room. Which, in modern day, they'd use actual sound effects for this. They wouldn't do what they did here, which is...
Do you know how he did it?
Did what? Paced?
No, how they showed him walking up and down.
Oh, what? When they did the dissolve shot?
So what they did was they had Ivan Novello walk across a hardened, toughened steel surface, a glass surface, and they just filmed it from the top. That's how they did it.
And this is already quite inventive. You know, this is inspired by Murnau, inspired by who did Das Kabinett des Dr. Caligari's?
And do you want me to? It was. Oh God, that's one of my favorites.
This is a lot more restrained than Dr. Caligari by a long way, but just this idea of we can do
Wiener.
Yeah, thanks. It's just the idea that you can just break away and do these weird shots. You don't just have to recreate theatre. And I got the feeling he was really pushing it, doing these tight angles as well. Oh, loved it. Sorry. I'm just swooning over
right
the
with
film
you.
a bit.
I'm right with you. You know me.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, do you want a little trivia about the cabinet?
Oh, Cabinet des Dr. Caligari's.
Yeah, so the somnambulist is the German in Casablanca. He's a German guy. Yeah, he's in Casablanca.
Really?
Yeah. That's
the guy at the
Major
end, like
Heinrich.
the commandant.
Major Heinrich Strasser.
That's awesome.
And he was in another film called The Man Who Laughs. And that
Lon Chaney. Woo.
No, was it The Man Who Laughs? Or was it The Clown? I think it was The Man Who Laughs because he had the smile. He couldn't stop smiling. That influenced the look of the Joker.
Yes, indeed. Oh, awesome. I love the trivia. That's great.
Mm-hmm. I think it's The Man Who The Man Who Laughs, yeah.
All right. So yeah, he's being weird. They're having a bit of a laugh at him, but we are meant to get the sense of a threat, aren't we?
Yeah, the guy's a social recluse and doesn't. You think at this point because of the pictures, he doesn't like fair-haired girls, and then she comes in with his breakfast, and then he takes a knife, and you think, oh no, he's gonna stab her with a butter knife. I know, and then he just wipes something off her top basically, and it shows them basically starting a relationship essentially from that little, or starting to kind of be playful with each other anyway.
Yeah, he's getting a bit familiar because the Joe the policeman has been a bit cheeky in I think you'd say stealing kisses, you know.
Yeah, he doesn't let it go.
he's pouring her, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's all over her a few times. So they are supposed to be in a relationship, and he does say at one point when he is put on the Avenger case, he says, when I catch the Avenger, I'll put a ring on her finger.
Got you
with the bracelets, these new bracelets, which was a little bit of a suggestive joke.
Yeah, it was a bit much, wasn't it?
It's a bit. It is a bit creepy, that line.
Yeah.
And then he
So what with the I like fair hair too. He's a bit much.
It's quite interesting, like this very scene, like his joviality. You get that. Oh, actually, no, you're really not meant to like him all that much. He is.
I don't know. I like Joe.
I don't know. He's creepy in this weird thing of.
I just get creepy vibes.
Oh, I did. I definitely like. He was just a bit too possessive of Daisy. Like the thing of when he's handcuffing her, he just takes it a bit too far, you know.
Yeah,
and then this weird thing of like the relishing killing the Joker and explicitly tying it to only basically getting the ring around Daisy's finger. It's a little odd.
Do you mean the Avenger, not the Joker?
Oh gosh, I did. Sorry, it's because we mentioned the Joker there.
I don't know. I just thought he was really awkward with words, essentially. I don't know. I found him endearing.
He had endearing qualities. I think we weren't supposed to like dislike him, but I think he was. I suppose it was perhaps meant to be in like comparison to the refined, slightly effete manners of the Lodger.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it doesn't take too long before you get a title card saying a few days later, and it's the Lodger and Daisy playing chess, and they're clearly quite familiar with each other. And she takes a piece, and he says to her, "Be careful, I'll get you yet." And it's like another thing where I was like, right, this is just too thick. He's obviously not the killer. But I suppose that this is one of kind of the first murder mystery films ever made. you know, you don't know all these tropes, and laying it on thick isn't necessarily a bad thing at the time. But yeah, there's a go on. You've heard.
I was just going to say, yeah, that is a challenge of we are such a genre-aware group. You know, we've seen hundreds and hundreds of films, and so seeing this be played a little bit, I don't want to say unsophisticated, but with fewer twists and turns on it, you know. I don't want to say it's not subtle. It's because there are constraints on the genre and the filmmaking, but yeah, we are quite primed to not really go for suspecting the Lodger fully.
Yeah. It's, you know, is it a problem with the film? You could argue that, but I mean, really, you can let it go a bit because of the time it was made. You know, it's one of the first films made, so it's almost like it's still finding its feet. So, but yeah, and there's a load of shots where you'll see the Lodger like pick up something that could be a weapon. So, you know, you have the knife, and then you have the fire poker while they're playing chess, and it's like they shoot it like he's going to kill her. And then it's just, oh no, he does something mundane. And it reminded me a lot of the Simpsons parody when they did the Dexter intro, where it'd be like Flanders takes a pillow, looks like he's smothering something, he's just making the bed. Reminded me of that. So yeah, Joe is. We're told Joe's on the Avenger case, and God, what happens next? Sorry, I'm trying to watch the film at the same time, and there's a lot of kind of nothing happens between important scenes.
It is hard. It's easier to sort of prompt yourself on it this way. After this sort of fun making, we get that little bit of Joe enjoying showing off his handcuffs and just going a bit too far, which sort of creates the tension between Joe and the Lodger, because the Lodger's intervening here. And then it's papered over a bit, but the tension is there. Joe is now seeing the Lodger, who I don't believe gets a name in this, but in the novel he's called Mr. Sleuth.
Right. And
that's
another. That's also lays it on even more. Oh, Mr. Sleuth, you must be bad.
That's. It's not quite General Grievous, but it's
true.
General Kenobi.
Darth Vader, Darth Sidious, but it's still it's preliminary to that, I suppose.
The tension is there, and Mrs. Bunting is just basically saying, "No, don't worry about him. He's not into girls. He's not that sort."
Yeah, they have the conversation about money as well, where she says, "Oh, you should lock that money away. It's tempting Providence," and he says, "Oh, Providence is more tempting things than money," which again was a line to me that made it out like he's trying to be a murderer or something. Like I'm not buying it, unfortunately.
I thought it was meant to be more of a joke, but God has better things to worry about than money.
Probably, but he had a very stern face when he said it, so I don't know.
He's just being dry.
Yeah. So we have Joe being I mean, I can see what people mean by arrogant, talking about hanging the Avenger and then putting a ring on Daisy's finger or whatever, and then they get a bit playful. Well, he tries to get playful with her and obviously takes it too far when he handcuffs her, to which she screams, and the Lodger and Mrs. Bunting just come out, and he just stays at the top of the stairs staring him down while she goes down and tells Joe that he's been an idiot, basically. And then he has a bit of an interrogation about the Lodger, and he says, are his intentions, or does he mean any harm to Daisy? And she says, oh, he's not that sort. So her character profile is basically, he seems pretty normal, despite the fact first day he's like, take these pictures down and I'm locking myself away.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah. So then we go on to the night scene again, where it's you see the Tonight golden curls, and you've got the women leaving the fashion show.
I love this angle. I love this so much.
Proper expressionism.
Yeah.
Total.
So
Actually,
yeah,
sorry, if you're up for it,
Go on.
Mitch, I realise
Mhm.
we've just dropped that a lot. Would you be okay? Would you describe expressionism just for people who haven't heard the phrase?
It's a bit complicated. So basically, expressionism was a German art form. Okay, I know some of you like Aspin, but it was actually good. It was a German art form mainly that was not just in film. It was in dance. It was in novels. It was an artistic movement, and the aim was to try and think of things outside of the box. Try to think of different things to do. And in film, at least, not so much in dance, they would draw more towards the dark, more macabre aspects of humanity, and the visual, so everything is more exaggerated, and the shadows everywhere. Like in the cabinet of Dr. Is it Cagliari or Cagliari?
Caligari, isn't it?
Caligari, yeah.
I'll pull
They
you up an
literally
image.
paint shadows on the set. So not only is there shadows from the lights, there's shadows painted. And everything's exaggerated and distorted and weird. And the acting style usually is also a little bit weird and a bit more, well, they had to at the time anyway, be a bit more expressive. So like in one film, I forgot, it might have been a Louise Brooks one. One guy's literally acting with his veins in his hands, showing how angry he is or something. But in this film, it's obviously got the influence, which Cox put is a different style. It's a bit more naturalistic, shall we say, the acting. Like none of them are overacting like you would expect. But that's what it is. Expressionism is that, basically. It's a visual style, if anything. And it was in vogue at this time, and it already crossed over into Hollywood because a lot of the expressionist directors were moving over there as well. And in fact, there is another film, if we ever get to another silent films, called what's it called? What is it? It's the one with it's the first horror comedy.
Are you thinking of an Abbott and Costello, maybe?
No. They were way after the silent film. It's in the haunted house.
Oh wait, do you mean the House on Haunted Hill?
No, that's not a silent
because
film.
that's 50s. Sorry,
Remember,
silent.
this is 20s. So
Yeah.
it's
Sorry,
it's the canary in the thingy.
Cat and the Canary?
Cat and the Canary, 1927. Yeah.
I have not seen it, I'm afraid. I'm
It's a
very
good
weak
film.
on my 1920s, folks.
It's
and
the first ever horror
1930s,
comedy.
actually.
It's been remade numerous times, but that's an expressionist film, and it was directed by an expressionist director, Paul Lenny. He did The Man Who Laughs.
Oh, wonderful. I've just pulled up there an image from this cabinet, this Dr. Caligari's, and I've also got something from Carnival of Souls. So it's not as strong, but it's also this.
A lot of the film techniques like that was created in expressionist film, like movement and things like that. Because prior to that. Okay, that's not necessarily true. The Italians were using movement, but not to the extent the Germans were doing, like crane shots and things like that.
Sorry, folks, I'm just struggling to. So this was another image that I thought was just unbelievably expressionist, right? Just amazing framing use of light. Look at how jagged it is, making it much more threatening. It's like a massive blade pointed at the old woman, tucked up in her bed, looking terrified. And in this scene, you've got this beautiful play off the lodger sneaking out, and you cut back between them. And you might have noticed in this how many cuts there were.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, so many. It was unusual to have so many cuts in. And so you're just going back and forth between them. So the relationship between him trying to sneak out and her noticing it is very obvious. And you just have this framed in such an otherworldly way. It just looks.
Would you like some would you like some technical knowledge trivia?
Heck yeah.
So the reason why that's unusual, as you said, is because pretty much most silent films up to this point, obviously as technology improved, people got a bit more bolder with how they made films. It was always long shot, medium shot, close up. Almost every film up until the mid 20s It'll be long shot, medium shot. I can hit the tippy tappy tap in. Is that you, Harry?
Isolate. Harry.
Sorry, I thought I muted. Sorry.
Because remember, for a large part of like film history, the camera couldn't even pan side to side. So, but in this film, obviously, they do show that because by then the cameras could do almost what they could do now, and so like it was very uniform. It was long shot, medium shot, close up. So that the expressionists were trying to do different things, like, well, how do we zoom in? Because the zoom hadn't been invented yet. That was not for another 40 odd years or something. So, like, in one film, they had to literally do some kind of thing where the camera would be moving towards the guy.
Did you
right
see
into
that?
His face? Yeah.
Did you see that thing going around where you saw it was? I think it was 30s, but it was the camera was moving through a cafe, and you could see if you focused on it that the tables were being moved out mechanically.
Yeah, they could do that in the 20s. They would do that as well. There's a film where the traffic is obviously not real, but it's kind of still quite realistic. Like it was choreographed in a sense. So as they walk in, they know exactly where the car's coming from.
Yeah,
it's very interesting how they do that. And funnily enough, when sound became a thing, films reverted back to the long shot, medium shot, close up because by then everyone was used to the most technically brilliant films on movement and zooming in and things like that. Well, at least zooming in to the extent they could do, back then, with the physical effects. But with sound, because the cameras made a really loud noise when they were using it because they were hand cranked, it would be picked up in the mics. So they put them behind these big, massive screens, which were soundproofed. But that meant that it couldn't move much. So for a couple of years, they had to sort these issues out. So sound films were actually technically worse quality, despite being the future, which is why a lot of people at that time lamented the death of the silent film. But eventually, things got things improved, and films were back to the way they were.
Oh, you are definitely the right guest for this stream because I just honestly, it's a massive gap in my knowledge. I am incredibly spotty on anything before 1955. I'm just, this is why I try and push it. Actually, it's.
But this is why film preservation is important, because the reason why there's a gap in my knowledge as well. I've not seen most silent films, and most of them we'll never see because they weren't preserved. Yeah. They were seen as just disposable.
Sadly, yes, indeed. It sort of, it excites me that we might be okay. There's some weird noise coming through.
Not me.
That's not me. I can hear it.
Okay.
It's Waifu.
Waifu.
What? I'm sitting still and the cat's on me.
It's your microphone. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's your mic. If you can lower the sensitivity of it, anything. Anyway, try and sort that. What I was trying to say is, it's very easy to get into sort of with anything actually, with art, with books, with music. It's really easy to sort of find yourself unconsciously just sort of sticking to what's easiest to get hold of and finding yourself just almost like herded into mainstream stuff, It's really easy to just, if you pop on the radio, they'll pretty much, I'm picking up a little bit. I don't know what that is. I think it might be me. No, it's Waifu. Sorry. It's really easy to find yourself herded into, what gets shown in the multiplex, what's on Netflix, what's on Prime, what's on the radio. And I'm not trying to be a snob here at all. I'm just trying to say that it can be really good to deliberately try and break out of that. Deliberately try and get your books from, pre-1900. There's great stuff there.
Yeah,
it can just be like you wouldn't naturally reach for it, but it can be fantastic. Thomas Hardy, fantastic read.
Oh God, sorry.
Okay. I'm a very depressing person.
Not a fan.
For me, I love a bit of Thomas Hardy.
Yeah, I thought it was good in Mad Max.
Oh, for God's sake.
Wait, Wilkie Collins. Big shout out for
Kick
Wilkie
him
Collins,
out.
Yeah,
early
Wilkie
horror and
Collins.
crime writer.
But you know what's also annoying about getting into not sound films, into silent films, is that most of the prints are just terrible because they're old prints from like VHS and they're played at the wrong speed. So like if you're watching a serious drama, it's going dead fast and it's shorter as a result of that, and it looks weird and jaunting because most of them should have been between 16 and 18 frames, but they're played at 24, which is the wrong speed to play them at.
Yeah, you find this actually. This is a bit of weird trivia, but I'm sure you all know this. But the projection in a cinema and the speed on a broadcast TV was different. So the classic projection for sort of 60s onwards movies is 24 frames per second, whereas TV would be 26. Which was largely to shorten things and get more ad space in.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So frame rates are, you can notice it. It can be subtle, but you notice. And 18 to 24, you absolutely notice.
Yeah. So like when you watch a silent film as the way it was meant to be seen, minus the live orchestra or organist or pianist, it looks realistic, like the people actually moving. I think Peter Jackson did that for his own kind of like version of 1918, They Will Never Be Forgotten or something.
Yeah. Kent's got it up there. It's funny enough. Yeah, you put that down. That's one of the standard rates in Premiere Pro is 29.97 FPS. Weirdly specific.
It triggers me.
Yeah.
So
My autism.
We should probably move on a bit, but this is the beauty of it. There is so much to go into. I
am gonna skim over a lot of the plot here.
you go on, mate. I'll just show you some of the scenery. You rock on.
So yeah, as we say, he sneaks out. We then see another showgirl is murdered in this alley with the single light. And then it cuts to the policeman coming in and doing their investigation, but then it just cuts back to the house where the landlady hears him sneaking back in at about midnight. So she's got the information. So yeah, then we move on to the next day where Joe comes to visit the landlady and the husband, and they hear a noise upstairs and a scream of Daisy, and a picture randomly falls off the wall for some reason. So they go up and they just see it's those two getting very close to each other.
The reason why it falls is because she dropped something. That's why.
Oh yeah,
they're trying to show you that. Remember, they know the limitations. They're trying to show you there's something happening.
Yeah, the table tips over. Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be another fake out that she's getting murdered, and it's like I'm not falling for it, and then no, they're in love. Couldn't see that coming. She was scared by it now.
They're playing chess, aren't they? Before.
Yeah. Which is fine. And so Joe's clearly getting very jealous because the lodger was the hero, and he says, "Look, you can't." And after they've all barged in and gone, he says to the landlady, "Look, you can't. No matter what you hear, you can't do that again. I'll have to go elsewhere." So he really doesn't like to be disturbed, as has been shown before. And Daisy's annoyed with Joe because Joe was just having a massive go at the lodger because he's like, you can't hold her when she's scared.
It's amazing. The bit when he gestures for them to get out looks amazing.
Get out.
That was very.
I liked it.
Very
Chad. Yeah,
totally.
And so then the landlady and the husband have a bit of a conversation. She says, when she finds out there was another murder the night before, she says, the lodger went out at this time, around that time last night. And she notices that he doesn't like fair-haired girls. So she basically puts two and two together and says, well, he's probably the murderer because he's acting like one. So which I'm like, yeah, I can understand that. Because the issue here isn't that he's made out to be the murderer. The problem is that they lay it on so thick it's obvious that he isn't. But that's more a filmmaking thing than an actual plot issue.
Well, that's because we've seen it so many times since then as well.
Yeah. So after this, they say Daisy can't be alone with him because he might murder her, which sensible to me. If you think you've got a murderer in the house, you might also want to call the police for your suspicion, but they don't do that. So
well, they don't know.
You win some, you lose some.
No, but if you suspect, I think it's good enough to call the police to say, look, our lodger went out last night and he fits the description. I think that's fair. But yeah, and then there's another bit with the show where the lodger and I find it hard to tell the difference between the women. Is Daisy performing in the show?
Blonde. Yeah, she's the one in the sequin dress. She's blonde.
Okay, there's a lot of blondes in this film, but he's actually dead suave. He's got like a cane as well, which I thought was really cool, and he really nonchalantly lights the lady next to him's cigarette. And I got really bad line,
by the way.
Yeah, you could tell. Yeah, he had real bad Ted Bundy vibes. Like he was clearly a bit of a good with the ladies, we'll say. And yeah, Daisy is performing. So after that, you go to the police station with Joe. He's pointing on the map where the murders are. And they've got a really random pattern on it. They've got like the dots where the murders happen. And then there's just this really weird like squiggle around it that just doesn't seem to make sense.
No, it's a triangle.
No, that's not yet. Before, at the police station, they've just got like a really weird looking ring that doesn't mean anything. And then it dissolves into the triangle that the lodger's drawing. And he's like, putting on the map. At this point, you're obviously supposed to think this is where he's going to murder next, but to me, it was that's where he's going to look next to try and catch the guy, because he seems to have figured out the pattern. Beyond that, the pattern doesn't really make sense to me. It's just triangles, but it's fine. So, yeah, Daisy shows her parents that he got them the dress she was showing off, and she's like, oh, it's very expensive, it's very nice, and they're obviously very disapproving, and the father has to go up, knock on the door, say, look, you can't buy my daughter gifts. You know, it's not that type of relationship or going on here, unfortunately. So which is disappointing. Really cool.
I really like that. What a check.
Yeah, and he, the lodger's like really annoyed about that, naturally, and then disappointed. And then this the bath scene with her, which I was surprised they had at all. But she's in the bath. You see her ankles. Jesus.
I was genuinely a bit surprised by that. Like you see a heck of a lot. I mean, I know that they're very clever in using steam to cover up her unmentionables.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
Very, very hot. So it was well shot and all that. They had the camera looking down at her toes, which I can only imagine look really weird, like looking to where that, because the cameras in those days will have been massive.
And they weren't that big if you actually look at the pictures of behind the scenes.
All right. Well, yeah, it's still not like you can get film quality.
Could.
Oh yeah, I believe you, but in those days you can just use an iPhone. Oh, you can even use GoPros for high definition shots like that now. So. So yeah, Joe's asking her, were you angry about the dress? She says, no, I loved it. And they find out it's the parents' decision that they can't be together. So from there, is it here that Joe finds out that works out that he's probably the murderer?
Well, what happens is he sees them about to smooch.
Oh yeah.
Rightfully gets angry because she was about to cheat on him, and then she dumps him, which I think was quite unfair because she's the one who was about to do the unthinkable. Yeah,
Daisy's a bit of a thought.
A little bit. Yeah. Well, yeah, she's the prototype Hitchcock woman character, femme fatale. Well, she's not in the femme fatale, but you know what I mean.
I was surprised by how much she was kissing on screen and then willing to sort of, I mean, Ivor Novello's a bit of a dish, but I was a little surprised by how much she was doing, like being willing to kiss so early and on screen.
Yeah.
It did surprise me.
Yeah, you're watching a lot of silent films that did do a lot of that.
Yeah, it's just expectations getting challenged. Hey, Devontae,
But to be fair-
good to see you in chat, man.
But he does.
If you look
if
at-
you watch, go on, yeah.
I was gonna say, if you look at how they're actually kissing, it's very just they sort of put their mouths together and then just sort of stand there. It's not really
Yeah,
quite the sort of schlorpy noises we get at the moment.
they did that for years, though, didn't they?
Yeah.
Like up until the 70s, even you could say.
They were
Very-
very chaste, yeah. Oh, but I mean, just we should probably reference this now because we haven't gone off any tangents, so it's fine. Long-term viewers of the channel will remember that this being in 1927, we are firmly under the reigns of T.P. O'Connor, the first president of the British Board of Film Censorship, as it then was. We did not have our H for horrific certificate, and his 47, I think, rules for what could be on screen were very much in effect and were very strict on what you could show. So if you want to look in the back catalogue, folks, you can see exactly what he prohibited.
It's 48 if you include the Destiny's Child rule as well.
Oh, yes.
But like, so anyway, they split up, and he's really dejected and sad. And then he realizes something, that the footprint is very similar to another one. And then they show his mind working as he puts
I
things
really
together.
like this shot.
And then
where
he
it's showing him
realizes,
working it
like,
all
oh no.
Yeah, that was really impressive that they managed to do this double exposure on the film and get like, and it must have been quite precise to get that those shots within the center of the frame like that. That was really impressive.
Yeah, exactly. I loved it. I mean, it clearly works out what everything you've been shown you're supposed to work out, which is he's probably the killer. And so the couple return home after Joe's been dumped, wrecked, and they sneak up to the room, and they just have this. It's just this really long scene to basically say they're together now properly. They don't care what anyone says.
She's like,
you've got.
Please, Ivor.
You've got.
Playing a bit coy, isn't she? Though she's
Well, she's.
No,
Well,
she's
yeah,
ready for it there.
Well, she is there.
yeah,
but that's
but
after
this is
10
about
minutes.
5 minutes.
Girls love playing hard to get till they don't, and they're the opposite. While this scene's going on, Joe and a couple of other of the boys arrive to come and arrest him because they think they've got enough evidence. Well, they've come in with a warrant to find more evidence to actually arrest him. So as they're going around, they find the locked little cupboard, which
it's what we've been set up to worry about, you know.
Yeah, because the mother had seen it before.
Yeah, she noticed the locked cupboard. And there's a bag in it, and what's in the bag?
The bag.
A lot of incriminating evidence, a gun, and I think if you're going to make this film better, you'd have that it had been established that these girls have been shot, which it hadn't at this point.
No.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's really interesting. I'm glad you picked up on that because it was when I was getting the clips, I just realized, hang on, as far as we know, none of them have been shot, and the only newspapers we see indicate they were stabbed. And so actually, while that gun is going to look quite dodgy, if we think about it, we're like, this shouldn't lead us to suspect him. So it's a clever clue, really.
But if you think about it, though, they're shown not to be thinking rationally, because if you thought rationally, you'd realize actually no, he's not when he explains it to them. But they're not.
Yeah.
But it's meant to. All this stuff is meant to make us suspect him, but also not cheat. You know, it's got to. It's got to work when we come back and think about it with the final knowledge. And this thing of the pistol is brilliant for looking super dodge, but actually weirdly exonerating him.
Dodgy
So
in
I-
a very different, specific set of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totes.
And I don't know if necessarily. I think at this time you could own a pistol if you had an
Yeah.
over-the-counter license. Or and they were like a
Days.
tenner. They were really
Is that like a Browning or something? It's not a Colt.
I can't even. It's not. No, it's not a 1911. I can't tell what that is, to be honest. It's a pistol.
Nice one, though. I thought to myself, that's probably legal, not illegal.
Yeah, I think it will have been illegal at that point. Man, we used to be so lax on gun regulations in the UK. It used to be great.
They used to be packing heat.
They did, yeah. So yeah, it was a British
Is
tradition.
packing heat round here.
Like who?
Like
Farmers.
And their
farmers,
mums.
mums.
Had to be done.
Yeah.
Always comes back to Hot Fuzz.
So yeah, but that's not the only evidence. They also have. They obviously have his triangle map, which, if you're recording all the places where stabbings are being done, despite the fact you have a pistol, yeah, that'd be a bit dodgy. And then there's all the newspaper reports and the picture of the first victim, and they're like, "Yep, that's good enough for an arrest. See you in court." Which is he's like, "Oh, are these the plans for the murders?" And he just replies, "Exactly." And it's like, why would you incriminate yourself? Like,
Well, he thinks he has something to hide, right?
True. But still, you would, if you're asked, are these the plans for the murders? Don't say yes.
Yes, but
say like not exactly, or like location. Just say locations or something like that. Just don't say anything. That would probably be better. So after all that evidence is found, yes, he's arrested and put in handcuffs. How the hell does he get away again?
There's a brief distraction and he just legs it. It was a bit awkward, to be honest.
Yeah, he's being led out with the guy holding him. Hang on, I'm just watching it again. Joe's there looking really stern for some reason. Oh yeah, they go down and the landlady and husband are terrified that they think they've had the murderer in the house. And then none of the officers are on him or anything. Daisy's just there with him saying, "Oh my god, you're like my boyfriend," whatever. And no one's concentrating. Oh yeah, the woman faints. That's it. The landlady faints because that's a trope of the time that every woman faints. So he tells Daisy to meet him by the lamp because no police officer is next to him, actually restraining him for some reason. Then he legs it. Bit contrived, but it's how the plot goes. And then he goes to the lamp. She meets him with his cloak. And then he explains a bit of the backstory at this point, where he says, "It's my sister's portrait and I'm trying to avenge the Avenger." And then you get a little flashback scene, and it's a really contrived murder. It's like this massive ballroom, and the lights go out for a bit, and then it's like his sister died.
Yeah, I wasn't very fond of this, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's things like, it's this scene where I was like, well, hang on, were any of them actually killed with guns? In this scene, you'd be like, a gun wouldn't have done this because people will have run out and all that, but it's just her screaming. And then his mum died soon after, and she was basically saying, "Avenge my daughter." So that's been his mission the whole time. So it's like, okay, fair enough. We need to calm your nerves. And then she does something incredibly stupid. You've had this murderer on the loose for ages. People in the area are going to be really worried. First place I go to with a man in handcuffs, even if you've hidden them, go to a bar. Why wouldn't you go to one of the most public places in England?
What could possibly go wrong?
It was
on the bright side.
Stupid.
On the bright side, we got to see inside a pub in 1920.
Yeah, it looked great, to be fair.
It's gorgeous.
And it's like, and they order a brandy, and it's like, wow, that's only something my grandma would order.
Well, it's to warm him up, isn't it?
How dare you? Brandy is delicious.
No one drinks it, do they?
Yeah, they do.
We drink brandy.
All right, no normal people do.
Oh, fair play. Yeah,
Are
you
you
got me
calling
there.
me and my wife? Yeah, fair point.
Yes.
I just love how the women look in these films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you noticing all the hats as well?
yeah.
Everyone's wearing
Yeah, I
hats. They
really
just
like
look
the aesthetic.
amazing.
Like to be honest,
Yeah.
male fashion didn't change from like the 1880s to like the 60s.
And now we all wear jeans and t-shirts.
I don't mind that.
Oh, come
You
So-
wear jeans and t-shirts.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just, and what annoys me is that she was established before as being quite clever with hiding her hair. I think it was Daisy doing that.
No, it
I
wasn't
found it hard to
Daisy.
tell.
No.
It wasn't
I think
Daisy.
she was
Okay.
responding to like the pressure. Like she needed to get the brandy in him quick. So I kind of get that. Also, I love the banter in the pub. That there's just some old
Yeah.
lad who has a little crack. Oh, I loved it.
Lost his arms, yeah, and then the two ladies are in the corner, like he's clearly got handcuffs on under that.
Fez, you always have the best suggestions on drink. Yeah,
Oh, Grappa's
Armagnac-
great.
I would say Armagnac above brandy. To be honest, I don't know Spanish brandy. Is that specific? Is Spanish brandy a specific thing? Let me know.
see.
I'm curious.
We're doing sober October, and I regret it already. I blame Chloe.
Yeah, but we won't be sober at no mass.
Wait. Oh, good time. Yeah, that's on its way. Quick, guys, quick, Super Nanny. Hurry.
Oh no. It's okay. We're nearly done. So
Yeah.
obviously, when you take a murderer into a very public place, you're gonna get a mob. Because why wouldn't you get a mob? They're trying to catch a murderer. And then when they go in the pub, it's like, oh, we've got a call from the police here. They're looking for you, which I don't know how they got to that point. Like how or did he call the?
Didn't he? That he was going there.
Oh, possibly, yeah. And yeah, it's just like, oh no, we caught him like 10 minutes ago. It's fine.
I've got that up there. I'm gonna be honest. Not a fan, and this is this annoyed me. So we were gonna put it off until now because I think it makes sense. But obviously, Mitch, you raised this. You had found this behind. The ending is very much changed in this version of the film from the original story.
Yeah.
So
So basically,
I don't know if you want Mitch.
I'll
do you want to
explain
take
it.
that?
Yeah, I'll do it. So basically, in the original, I've never read the book, so I got this from online. So basically, in the original, Ivan Novello's character is the murderer, but he escapes, so kind of like Jack the Ripper escapes in real life, and Joe gets the girl, and that's what Hitchcock wanted to do originally with his writers. They were going to have this ending, but Ivan Novello's agents, or maybe it was the studio heads, were like, "No, we can't have Ivan Novello as a bad guy. That's just wrong. He's a matinee idol. His fans would dislike it as if they think that they know best for his fans." But whatever. In fact, years later, in Suspicion, Hitchcock would have another issue exactly like that, but with Cary Grant. He wanted Cary Grant to be the murderer.
Oh, is that why the ending is so
Yeah, this
infuriating
is
and
the one we
special?
watched and was just sort of
all the tension, and then no, it's just a joke, love.
As if Cary Grant would have given the shit if he. Oh, there we go again.
Oh, so close, so close. A
Twice.
fun little note about Suspicion: it's got Nigel Bruce in it. Nigel Bruce, who was in The Lady Vanishes, really good Hitchcock film, and also bizarrely he's playing the same character in that he plays in Dead of Night from 1945. Yeah, weird little thing.
The more you know.
I realised I forgot to do my YouTube thing at the start, so yeah, do that. Sorry guys, there was a lot to cover this stream, so I haven't prompted anyone yet, but while you're here, if you're liking what we're doing, give that like button a good old stab in the dark. Just shake that like button.
Help her,
Give it a
she's only
smash.
24 away from 1,000.
Yes, have that like button, center of the camera, screaming as it's dying in an it's not actually established how they die, but you just know they were murdered.
Remove its
Take the
abdomen.
guts out of that subscribe button and throw the intestines onto your bedside table.
Oh my god.
Have your way
This
with
is
that
why that you
subscribe
don't-
button and leave it on the cold tiles.
This is why
Are
she
we
doesn't
still
let me on her
good?
streams very often.
Yeah.
I think.
Sorry,
yeah,
I realised I
think
should do
about
it. We are scarily close to the 1,000, guys.
Wow.
So, hey.
Please,
Oh,
get
hey,
24
good,
people subscribe just to get her
Ken,
Please
a
do.
good
little bit closer
call.
to stop kvetching about it.
That's where Nigel Bruce is. Lovely. Guy got around. Okay, so we've had this. The
God, it's so
ending in the
stupid.
novel is a lot. The novel is very ambiguous. Basically, there are little changes like the fact that Daisy isn't always in the house. She comes in later in the novel, and you've got much more worrying indications that the lodger might be Jack the Ripper or the equivalent, such as sort of bumping into him and then finding out he's sort of left a bit of blood on you. But you never get it confirmed in the novel either way. It's highly suspicious, but he's set up to meet with the daughter and I believe stepdaughter as well. And then the landlady and landlord have alerted the police to this. And so when he sees the police, he runs away feeling he's been set up, disappears, and his body is discovered 5 days later. That is not what happens here.
Nope.
No,
For the
what happened?
aforementioned reasons.
What happens here is a lot more stupid. It's just he happens to be the police happen to be on the line looking for him when he goes in the pub. How they know to do that, I don't know, but whatever. And they say, oh, he was caught red-handed 10 minutes ago. So, oh, that's really, really, really convenient. Though it is a Tuesday night, so it's understandable. And the police haven't shown to be at all competent at this point yet. So that's also really lucky.
It is quite the cheat, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I mean, what you would do typically now is you would feed in enough background stuff to be like, wait, we saw him in the background the whole time.
Well, yeah, this is the other thing. If they're going to the main suspect's house, I wouldn't have thought you'd have that many police officers actually looking out for him. So why would they catch him red-handed this time? And I'm not being funny. It sounds a lot more of an interesting story to actually follow the murderer in this film.
Well,
But we
yes.
never, ever even get an inkling of who he could be or who he is. But
Well, that's because his hands were tied, and he had it throughout his career.
Yeah.
I think Vertigo, was a little bit hampered by the Hays Code because I think he didn't want. This is spoiler. He's 60 years old. Look, the woman dies at the end, and it's like he probably didn't want her to die. I think from what when I watched it, somebody told me that.
I mean, it kind of works for me because it had a lot of symmetry, but I wouldn't be surprised if they forced him into it because studios are very
the
demanding.
bad guy must pay basically up until a certain point.
Just make your films on YouTube without interference from any studios. It's just as good.
There's this guy called Spoonie who tried that. I don't think he even. Anyway, that's some deep. That's a deep law.
Right. I mean, there's not a lot really to say with the rest of this plot.
After
he
that,
gets
they live happily ever after.
Well, literally, he gets chased by the mob. He then, he somehow gets his handcuffs caught on a fencing rail as he's trying to climb over it, and he's got a mob above him and a mob below him, all trying to claw at him. He randomly starts bleeding from the mouth, which I don't know why, because he doesn't really show him getting hit.
No,
and
I think they struggled with that, to be honest.
Yeah, and then you've got Daisy and Joe basically saying no, he's innocent, get him away, but they're really struggling because it's really hard to control a mob. Luckily, eventually, the mob stop, and I hated this bit as well because at 10 minutes after the Avengers actually caught, apparently it's on the news everywhere, despite the fact at the start it's established it takes an entire night for that to happen.
So he should have died. I think you must have watched the Phantom of the Opera because that ends in a very similar way, but much better.
So he's knocked out, and next scene he's in hospital, and you're told by the doctor, he's had severe nervous strain, which I assume that means a head injury. But it's like, no, it'll be fine.
His youth and vigor will pull him through.
I love that line.
Yeah, and then it's like the ending. They're in a really nice house. They're together. Yeah. Yeah, it is his house, isn't it? Yeah.
Did you tell the audience why he had the gun and the map?
Yeah, because he was going out to kill the Avenger because he killed his sister.
Yeah.
I must have missed that. Yeah. So that was his mission accomplished. Oh, and he got a girl on the way. It's like, wow, this is a really bad horror film. The fake hitting
up until that bit, I think.
It's very theatrical, I'm afraid, at the end. So you tend to see this. I mean, Mitch, you've clearly seen a lot more of this era than me, but the hitting is done in a very, I think, self-consciously unrealistic way. I
think that's just that film, really, because in the Phantom of the Opera, which I think they've definitely been copying,
that's
he gets
the 26th one, yeah, the Gaston Leroux.
25, yeah.
Okay.
They throw him into the sea, into the river, I think. Yeah, much better filmed. And that film in its current state is a hodgepodge. Have you seen the Angry Video Game Nerds video on the Phantom of the Opera?
No, I haven't.
Well, basically, the version that we have currently may actually be like a Frankenstein's monster of different versions. Yeah. So I think he definitely had seen that and thought, oh, we need a mob. We need a mob scene at the end. You know.
It sort of makes sense to me because they'd set up mobs at multiple points, like at the start, and then when the next body is discovered, it's like they're all swarming round. It's sort of, I kind of like it, and it fits in with the Ripper mythology of people getting sort of really het up and a sort of mob forming on it.
Yeah, he gets that atmosphere spot on, I'd say.
Yeah. I will say when it comes to like the last shot when it's zooming in on the Lodger and Daisy, I do like that behind him it says "Tonight Golden Curls" again.
Yeah,
I thought that was quite a neat thing to add in for the end.
I might just get that up because I thought it looked a bit lovely.
Yeah. I mean it's a happy ending for a film that absolutely should not have had a happy ending.
No, or at the very least it should have been Joe and the girl. Yeah.
It would have been so much better if it had ended much more ambiguously with, like, did he do it? Or did he get away with it?
Yeah, I would have preferred Daisy to die as well.
I know what you mean.
That would have been quite wonderfully challenging, wouldn't it?
Yeah, all thoughts must die.
Well, I don't know. It's just a bit more complex in what it would be saying if it was, say, Joe was actually genuinely a bit of a bad un and was maybe seen to be willing to let the mob get Mr. Sleuth in order to get Daisy back.
Yeah. Why no happy ending? Because it's a horror film.
We get happy endings
it's more
a lot.
Of a thriller than a happy
horror. Yeah, it's not really a horror film, but it's just a weird kind of tone to end on after the rest of it, where it's been like, is Daisy gonna die throughout it? It's like, it's a husband, lol. Rock thoughts must die. Oh.
You see, I would have picked this as the first one for you to watch it from a Hitchcock film because this is when he was young and I'm still kind of figuring out his craft.
Yeah, he's 27. I saw in the chat.
28. 1899 he was born. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm nearly 28 now. Oh my god, that's what he was doing at 28.
Wow, you're old, dude.
I'm 30. Bugger off.
If you want to feel worse,
wow, you're older.
Don't talk about how old Chloe is. She'll divorce me.
Isn't she like 62?
Oof.
Oh, that's a bit much.
That's a
63. Thank you.
All right.
33 was it?
63. Thank you.
She wishes.
He said I was 55 and I'm 53. 53.
Excellent film. I'm only 53.
I was going to say the director of Witchfinder General was 22, wasn't he?
Yeah,
because I think he died at 24. I'm going to look that up quickly just to confirm, because that was one of my favourite ones that we did.
53.
Yep, it was Michael Reeves and oh gosh.
Oh, we got big news, people. It's
Oh,
going to be a Doom Guy me
24.
character.
a
For what it's
Doom
worth.
Guy me character? But I'm
Oh,
lost.
Nintendo.
Oh, sorry.
Have you seen the Doom Guy Animal Crossing crossover?
No.
No,
You
I
need to
don't
watch it.
follow
It's
Nintendo
funny.
anymore.
It's funny. I don't follow Nintendo, but that's quite funny.
Sorry, I'm very
Proper
out
horror
of touch,
show.
I'm afraid.
Proper horror show, also known as Chloe, is not actually 63. But
She's
she and I
53.
Devonta, I will say I'm over 30. I'll put that out there.
I am also over 30.
Let's not get more specific than that.
Yeah, isn't
So-
that crime guy quite old?
I think from what I know,
Oh, he's ancient.
well,
He's on his
I-
last legs.
Oof.
yeah, I won't dox anything I know about that crime guy. But I will tell you guys.
35 years old. All right, mate.
I will tell you. Watch his Halloween special. He's doing a bunch of Halloween ones, and he's done
Ooh.
one on Michaela Manor. Very worth a watch. Very worth a watch indeed. See, in fact, you can go to that crime guy for all your true crime needs. So I hear.
Hello. Welcome to the channel.
Oh, nailed it. Well,
He
That
hates
was
my
pretty
impression.
that's why you got to keep doing it.
Yes, he will become Phil Mitchell more and more.
We should start rounding things up a little bit. But I'd be very interested to hear, particularly from Haryan and then Waifu. What was it like watching a silent film, a black and white film?
It was fine. I just miss dialogue. Dialogue's my favourite part of films most of the time. And this obviously cut a lot. Though the music I felt filled in a lot of gaps. You could still tell what the emotion was supposed to be and what the conversation was supposed to be about, but I find well-written dialogue is usually my favourite and the best part of films. So missing that out, but then making it up for kind of cool shots and inventive ways of overcoming the problem, I kind of liked.
Mm.
So yeah.
Did it take a bit of adjusting to get used to it, or did you get into it quite quickly?
Not really, because I know I came in knowing what to expect, and yeah, it wasn't far from what I expected. Just I thought there'd be more cards for conversations, and there weren't for this one. But that's apparently the studio's fault.
Used to be.
Yeah, they.
Yeah.
I think they possibly took. I'm torn. Like, did they take too many out, or? I mean, it will have been made with those in mind, and
Although
if
by
you wouldn't
1927,
have the cards,
I would
maybe.
say that the audience would have been used to it and could get it. You know, I could get the gist of what they were talking about.
Yeah, I think I found it surprising how easy it was to sort of get into the flow of it. I found bits of it sort of, I think, perhaps unintentionally comic because I was expecting dialogue, and so because they didn't have dialogue, they had to really ham it up, and there was lots of kind of mugging for the camera, so it felt a bit entertaining like that.
Although I would say that their performance is a lot more muted than you would get from the typical silent film of this era. Although by the time you get to the late 20s, they're much more naturalistic.
Yeah,
I'd be interested to see more, to be honest. It intrigued me. In the same way that seeing Freaks, I just found, I know obviously that's a talkie, but I found it incredibly moving in a way that I wasn't expecting. And I'd love to see more silent films.
Oh, have I got one for you?
Oh,
It's not a horror film. It's called Sunrise. Look it up. It's good.
Sunrise.
Okay.
All right.
Made by an expressionist. It was a MGM of all companies, and there's a little funny. It's not funny. It's moving. So like they funded the film, and then the director's like he's talking to the producer Irving Thalberg, he's like his story's interesting, and they said, well, why are you making this film? Like you're this big Hollywood company. Why are you doing this art house film? It was Murnau who did this, by the way. Yeah, it's called Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. And he said, well, we make so much money that we could afford an artistic film every once in a while. You don't get that anymore.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Well, I don't know. You get something close to it in that you you kind of get directors who get big enough to do it. But with David Lynch, you get he would frequently get deals. I say frequently, twice. He got deals where he was given a big studio pick that he wasn't keen on, with the proviso that he could do something of his own later that was just for him, just artistic.
It's like June. He did June, then he did Blue Velvet, right?
Yes. No, I don't know. I think Blue Velvet came before that.
Oh, that's after. It's after.
Yeah, but it
Blue
was
Velvet's
also
86 and June's 84. So,
there you go. But I know it's The Elephant Man was one of those, and then he followed that up with something a bit weirder. In terms of doing more black and white, though, one of the arcs I've got planned is a Todd Browning arc.
Oh yeah.
You know, we know Freaks, or most people know Freaks. There's a 1931 Dracula with Bela Lugosi, but Todd Browning was pretty prolific, and I was kind of interested in, shall we just try and go for the weirder Todd Brownings, like the ones people haven't seen so much?
Oh yeah, so like the Unholy Three, things like that.
I do not know that one. I know the
He
one
did
about...
London After Midnight.
Yes, well, we might...
Which
Can
we
we
will
get
never
that?
see.
No,
No,
we can't
it's lost,
get that
isn't
one.
it? Yeah.
There's one about the knife thrower. I just thought I'd look into what we can get from him that's not talked about as much.
I'll
And
have a look
then-
to see which ones are available. And I'll get back to you.
Yeah, the BFI might help us out there, because obviously they're doing a lot of... Bless them, they do a lot of restoration work. And the other one is there's just kind of a weird thing about 1931 in particular. Because 1931, we have the Dracula, we have the James Whale Frankenstein, and there is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from 1931 that's very lauded. I haven't seen it myself, but and I think it's very interesting you get them, because 1931 is the year we get the H for horrific certificate. So it's just perfect timing, you know? Or not. I've clearly killed the confidence.
Oh no, you're right.
BBFC simping. So I'll find a way. I think we do have a fair number of black and white films in our future, but we're sort of we'll be ducking out of them. We've got one slightly weirder arc that that crime guy suggested that I'll be interested to see what you guys think of that.
I demand a sci-fi arc.
You probably should be able to demand a few films at this point. Harry.
Alien.
We could
Absolutely.
actually. We could do sci-fi horror.
Oh, Alien is so
Alien, Predator, Aliens
Splice.
versus Predator.
Huh?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Nail it.
nice. All right.
What about
Any
Terminator?
closing thought?
Yeah.
It is a horror film.
I enjoyed it. I've seen it before. I did notice more of the flaws this time around, but I already knew that his hands were tied, and so I watched it knowing that and giving it a chance. And I think it still holds up nearly 100 years on, especially when they get the atmosphere right. Needed more fog.
Definitely needed more fog, given that the subtitle is A Tale of the London Fog. You know.
Yeah.
So are we doing the 12 burgers?
We'll get it. Yeah, we should probably do our score. I'd also point out that the one of the sets that they have, the one with the lamppost, is clearly just like
Just a set.
the lamppost shakes, darn it. But yeah, folks, if you want to get your scores in now, you're very welcome. So if you haven't been here before, we score out of 12 burgers, and I don't think we're
Should be
ever going to
nice.
change.
Why change? Why fix what isn't broken?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. These
Maybe
burgers
it's
are
too broken to fix.
All that.
These
Well,
are
makes
burgers,
sense.
not bucks. They're entirely unbroken.
I'm surprised by. I'm always surprised by how many people come on and they're told to rate out of 12 and they get confused by it. You just do it out of 10 and add 1. That's all you have to do.
All right, okay. Let's see those scores coming in. And yeah, closing thoughts. Mitch, would you like to do closing thoughts and score?
I'd give it. Oh God. I give it a 7. It's a good film, obviously,
Mm.
but it's Hitchcock learning the trade, basically.
Mm.
Nowhere near as good as his later films. Not even as good as his later British films.
Mm.
I don't know if it's better than his first sound film, though. No, it is better than... Actually, no, I don't know. Between that and Blackmail, I don't know. They're both kind of as good as each other. It's definitely better than the one after that, The Manx Man, which is his last silent film and one of his worst. It's boring. Don't watch that. So I'll give it 7 out of 12. It's a good film, but just beware it has flaws. But it does hold up as like a different film to watch, you know.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. That's fair enough. I thought it might be a little higher, but okay.
It could be an
know
8.
you're actually...
It could be an 8. You know.
That's okay. I know you're quite a harsh critic in your scores.
I wasn't even
relatively,
trying
so
to be.
it's,
I wasn't trying to
no,
be.
it's just relatively. It's like we have to calibrate for people, and that is no bad thing. It just means like when we get a 12 from you, it's going to be an occasion. So if I could then go to, oh gosh, I didn't do a prediction for. Right, hang on.
Make one up. Make one up. Go quick.
All right, I'm putting it in the private chat. No, wait. Waifu, you go, and I will type you a prediction, and you can read it.
Okay.
After I've done mine, that is.
I think I would give it probably a 7 or an 8 out of 12 with extra mustard. I really enjoyed it. More than I was expecting to. I think there were some flaws. I would have loved to see Hitchcock do it like in the 40s or 50s. I think that would have been brilliant. But for, you know, the kind of the tension and the beauty of it and just the glimpses into like a pub in the 20s, it was fantastic and I loved it. So yeah, positive, enjoyed it, would watch again, but could have been better. So probably quite similar to Mitch.
Okay.
There you go.
I can go with that. All right. Haryan, I've sent a prediction to Waifu on Twitter, so if we can hear your final thoughts and score, that'd be nifty.
Yes. So as a film, you know, it's a silent film. I took that into account and all that. I liked a lot of the setups, but setting up a murder mystery isn't that difficult, really. But it had its through line. It was. I really liked my most favorite parts of this film was kind of the interaction with the random people at the start of the film. It gave quite an insight into the city of London at the time, and the interaction between the family. I enjoyed most of that. When it came to plot, again, it was pretty good. As I kept saying, it just laid it on too thick. That look, you're supposed to think the lodger is the killer. Do you get it yet? And they just kept doing that, and that got a bit on my nerves. But in terms of if that's an issue actually with the plot, kind of but it's not detrimental yet. And I can believe that him and Daisy would have a relationship. It wasn't out of the question. People started suspecting him around the time you should, with the evidence they had. It was just the ending, just everything after the handcuffs were put on him was just awful. Just every decision made by everyone was terrible. Plot convenience was out just everywhere. The most interesting part of a story like this wasn't there at all, which is what the actual killer was, who he was, what his motivations were. And even if it's a Jack the Ripper story, even if you don't find any of that out, the investigation's more interesting than anything else, but it didn't have any of that. So with all that in mind, 5 out of 12, no cheese. A lot of the superficial stuff I'll say I like, though. The look into 1920s life, as I say, was good. But when it came to the actual plot, which is what I mainly based my score on, middling to lower end. So 5.
Okay.
Interesting.
I'm sorry to have rushed it this week.
No, it's fine.
I've got to put a note for myself to get the prediction in early. Waifu, would you like to read the prediction? That very hastily.
Yes, that you definitely predicted beforehand.
Oh.
She said, you'd have got into it, but you hated the ending and found the baiting a bit obvious. 7 out of 12. So off on the score, but otherwise, to be fair, given that she predicted it after the discussion,
Yeah.
I was gonna
she
say
wasn't too far
It
off.
feels like I
you were
feel a
literally
bit.
just copying what I said.
I know. I know. I'm sorry, guys.
It's fine though. Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. It's been a tiring week.
I understand.
Yeah, I can go with that. I can go with that. Actually, as you say, it's like the focus on the Ripper hunting is actually very subdued in it, which is sort of you kind of think you'd get more, but then I have to sort of remind myself it was more based on a separate story, and I shouldn't expect it to just be a Ripper recreation. But gosh, I would have just loved another scene that was a lot more like the sneaking out late at night scene that I just thought was kind of the high point of the movie for me when it was at its most beautiful.
The tension in that was great. I loved that.
Yeah, like having him, she could have followed him out and followed him for a bit and then lost him in the fog. That would have been great.
Or Joe could have done it.
Or Joe, yeah. Or anyone, yeah. Could have been good, but I get they have limitations, but it's there's a lot you could have really taken out of this, to be honest, and replaced with better scenes. So yeah, there you go. Yeah. Especially the ending. Boo.
I think we've got pretty good commentary on it, pretty good criticism on it. Even if the ending, I kind of like him being attacked by a mob. I just don't like the whole. Oh, actually, we found the real killer, you guys. So
uses all around London in 10 minutes.
Yeah, those are real problems for me. So I'm very biased here. I would be bumping it up closer to it. It would be an 8 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Just my own particular biases. I just found it so much more fascinating simply for even boring scenes because I'm seeing 1920s London, and just that shot of the world becomes instantly more interesting for me. That's a kind of touch I loved. And the more creative shots were quite brilliant. So that bumps it up a lot, even though, it's not quite delivering the scares consistently. That's not the focus that it has, and that's kind of what I wanted. So it comes out about an 8. I have a good time. I think it's fascinating. Definitely worth recommending, but you've got to get the sound right on it. If you get one with the horrific music, oh dear.
Yeah, I kind of want to listen to the scene with the singing in it again, just to enjoy. Well, not enjoy, but to see how cringy it is. Can't be that hard to get through.
It's bad. I mean, shall I play it? Shall I risk it?
Nah,
no, it's a bit late. Okay,
it's too cringy.
It's just before the pub, isn't it, where you get the song? All right, folks. Well, that is our first Jack the Ripper arc film. As I said, a first in many ways. There's so much to cover here that I think we actually got a bit shambolic trying to cover it all because there's so much to go into in this. So, but I hope it was entertaining and educating. I'd like to give a massive thanks to my guests and everyone in the chat for keeping it nice and lively. And, well, Mitch, I think clearly our expert witness on silent films here. Absolutely fantastic having your insight. Is there anything you'd like to shill, sir?
My channel, obviously, Mitch. What else? I will be doing a speech at NOMOS in a few weeks' time. So
yeah,
I'll see you all there. Thank you. I don't know how I did it, but I already have the Todd Browning films for you.
Oh, you star. Which ones can we
check out?
Okay.
So we have The Unknown, which is the knife throwing one with Joan Crawford.
Oh.
And Lon Chaney, obviously. The Blackbird, where he's more of a crime film. I think he's got a crutch. He's like a cripple in that one. And what else? The Unholy 3, which is one that's also set in like a sideshow. A lot of his films are actually set in sideshows.
Well, he
There's a
grew
few
up
others,
around them,
but-
didn't he?
Mm.
So he was a bit. He knew that world.
There's a few others, but they might be. I don't know if they're available in a good quality. And then obviously for non-Todd Browning silent films, one that's more of a drama. But when I first watched it, I was amazed at how good it was. It's very much looks like a sound film, but it's still silent. It's called Sunrise, as I mentioned before.
Oh,
Song of the
yes,
Sea Humans. Then there's another film which you might be able to find called The Crowd, 1928. That's got one of the best shots you'll ever see. It literally is about crowds. The amazing thing about silent films is you could make them about abstract like subjects and it all makes sense. Then there's a good war film called The Great Parade, is it? Wait, let me double check. No, it's not. It's the Big Parade. That's it. That's obviously it's World War One because it's the 1920s. And then you could watch with that Wings, which has got a young Cary Grant. Not Cary Grant. It's the other guy. Let me just double check. He's not in it. He's not got a main part in it.
Bogart for that era, or
It's not Bogart. 1920. Hang on. I know he's in a film called The Virginian. Hang on. It's Gary Cooper's in it, like briefly. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Wings is good. That's set in World War One again, but it's it's in the air. It's in the air this time, and they use actual planes.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good stuff. So, folks, I mean, I hope if you tried The Lodger, I don't know how big a barrier it is for people, but if you were interested in seeing more black and white films, you got some good recommendations there. Haryan,
Just watch Chaplin and Buster Keaton. That'll get you into it.
Oh yeah, that will do the job definitely. All right, Haryan, anything you'd like to chill?
Yeah, my latest video published while we were on stream. It was great. It's about Roger Hallam, the co-founders of Extinction Rebellion, going full genocidal, and it was in a podcast with Mike Galsworthy, the scientist for Brexit guy, scientist for EU guy. He's gone full. I'm worried about the climate crisis now. So he started a podcast, and Roger Hallam was the first one. And they were going on about the, how the ambulances were being blocked by Insulate Britain, and they wouldn't let it through. It must have been for about half an hour. Mike was basically saying to him, I mean, everyone's probably seen the clip on Twitter, but he basically asks, would you block an ambulance that someone's potentially dying in and let them die? And he said, yeah, I'd block it. And he basically says, do you not think that's really bad optics for half an hour? And the guy's just like, nah, because it's justified and the government's fault. And it's like, ooh, this I had to go through. So I did. So yeah, you can watch that on my channel right now. It's an hour and 15-minute video. It's a long one. So.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah. Well, it was an hour-long podcast. And I only actually went through about 40 minutes of it. But yeah, it's a long one. So hopefully some of you will like that. There was also Laughing at the Guardian at the weekend. Who did I have on for that? I had Owen on for that, Cringe Walker on for that, and Cookie from Twitter. And we went through Guardian articles and laughed.
Nice.
Next one's in 2 weeks. Any other videos during the week? And next week, it's whatever annoys me on the day. That is all, my drillers.
Very nice, very nice. I know, Waifu, you don't have anything at the moment. We'll get.
I would like to chill my wife.
Oh, go on then.
Proper horror show. My wife. I don't know if you've heard of her channel, folks. She does horror streams on Tuesday evenings. I think it's reached the point in the evening where my brain has malfunctioned. Anyway, so close to 1,000. If y'all get her to 1,000 subscribers, she might stop fetching for 20 minutes, which would be nice.
Yeah, if I'm not good at the promo, guys, but honestly, the best thing you can do is if you enjoy what we do, share it around. I think there are a lot of channels out there, but to be honest, there are not. I've not found many that do what I hope channels would do and go deep into depth and cover weird stuff and cover it with a sort of angle to a lot, production, messaging, symbolism, really good plot attention. That's what I hope to see, and it's what I try and do. You know, I'm not on the level of, say, Collative Learning, who I think is pretty much unparalleled.
He's great.
If you haven't checked out Collative Learning's videos, the man is amazing. But I hope we do a good job, and I think we occasional shambolic vibes aside, I think we're getting better at it. I'm rambling because I'm tired. Sorry, guys. Basically, if you like what we do, if you know someone who'll like what we're doing here, share it. It's the best thing that you could do for the channel. Just take an episode you like, pass it around.
Stab that like button.
Yeah, absolutely. Share these videos around like a communion wafer. Oh, what a smooth segue. Because one of the things I've been doing at the moment is a Midnight Mass review. That is the latest series from Mike Flanagan, who I'm a massive fan of. It's a 7-episode series on Netflix. I wasn't sure if I was going to do episode by episode, but I decided it was worth it. There's lots to say, and it's pretty damn good, but it deals with the theme of faith, religion, and purpose in a way that I think is very worthy of comment. And my review of the 3rd episode is going to drop tomorrow. And I've filmed up to episode 6. So, everything but the final episode has been filmed. So there's going to be a lot of Midnight Mass reviews.
Nice.
So
I am yet to watch it. I hope it's as good as Bly.
Well, you know what? Watch Midnight Mass. It's not bad. I really enjoyed it. I just if you're doing a theme as personal as faith and purpose, we're gonna have a really personal response to it. So it's firmly in the this is not ideal because it's not exactly what I believe vibes. You know, what can you do?
Wow.
But we'll get into
good,
it.
Though. Got me right
It's
in
still
the feels.
I still say save Haunting of Hill House for last. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling on here, folks. I have seen...
Oh no, where's Super Nanny?
Shall I get her out? I'll get her out one more time. It's not my favourite one, but I did have fun making this one. Fez, you did ask. So just to remind, I did say what we are covering for Jack the Ripper. I might as well tell everyone. Next week, we are doing... Oh, crap. I've got to get the order right. I can tell you what we're doing. I'm just not sure of the order. We're doing From Hell, and we're doing the 1st season of Whitechapel, and it looks to me like we are brilliant. Yeah. So next week is going to be Whitechapel Season 1. Now, Whitechapel is available on Netflix. You should not have much trouble finding it. You only want to watch the 1st season. That's the one that deals with the Jack the Ripper copycat. And we're actually going to be joined by Tash for that one.
Oh no! No! It's going to be a repeat of last time.
No, it's going to be brilliant. It's going to be brilliant.
No, I'm looking forward to it.
So I thought that's going to be a lot. That's wonderfully weird and meta. It's watch. There we go. It's 3 episodes. It's about 90 minutes in total. Thematically, it's really interesting, and it will also give you low-key another sort of run through of the actual history of the murders, which is going to be really handy for the final film, which is going to be From Hell. I'm sort of tempted to try and I might do something else with like a sleazy 70s Ripper movie, but this is what we've got confirmed. So you're gonna have should have good fun with that. I think you guys will really enjoy Whitechapel. So just season 1. All right. With that, Super Nanny's not happy, but I had a really good stream. So I will reiterate thanks to all my guests. You're fantastic tonight, guys. Thanks for coming on. And
anytime.
Thanks for having us.
No, you're great.
You're welcome.
Chat for keeping it nice and lively. And thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everyone who's watching on Catch Up has enjoyed it. Do the liking, do the subscribing, definitely do the sharing. and we will see you soon. Thanks, y'all. Cheers.